Chapter 1263. The rules of time in the castle have changed. 10 days of cultivation is equivalent to 1 day outside. The inner demons patted Lei Bao's back. Where are we going? Lei Bao asked. Find a place to gather all the 9-star emperor beasts here. The inner demons said. Oh. Lei Bao responded and led the inner demons away, leaving Ren Wushuang standing alone on the mountain peak in a daze. 10 days of cultivation is equivalent to 1 day? Are you kidding me? How could there be such a ridiculous thing in this world? Roar! In the sky above a mountain peak. Lei Bao stopped in the void and roared into the sky. Roar! Hundreds responded to his call. Loud beastly roars sounded from all over the ancient tower. Following closely, ferocious beasts rushed into the sky from all directions and flew toward Lei Bao and the inner demons. Some were as big as mountains, and some were as small as rocks. There were even a few ferocious birds that spread their wings and covered the sky. Without exception, each of the ferocious beasts exuded an extremely terrifying aura. What happened? Why are there so many ferocious beasts and birds? Wang Xiaojie in the forest and the villagers in the village raised their heads at this moment and looked at the flock of beasts whistling through the sky in surprise. Soon, those ferocious beasts arrived and gathered around the inner demons and Lei Bao. The inner demons looked at them one by one, and the surprise in his eyes could not be concealed. There were more than 100 9-star emperor beasts here. Cough cough. Lei Bao coughed and said, From now on, everyone has to listen to Boss Qin's orders. All the beasts looked at the inner demons with fear in their eyes. Are you all afraid of me? The inner demons sneered. All the beasts were silent. The inner demons said, Actually, I'm not as scary as you think. However, the prerequisite is that you all must listen to me. All the beasts nodded. Relax your mind and don't resist. The inner demons formed seals with both hands, and enslavement seals appeared one after another and swept into the heads of the beasts. After controlling all the dire beasts, the inner demons waved their hands and brought everyone to the sky above the sea. The inner demons said, Split up and search. Whether it's in the sea or on an island, don't miss anything. Once you find any traces of humans, report back immediately. Yes. All the beasts roared loudly. Their voices were loud and deafening. The inner demons waved their hands again and hundreds of portals appeared, floating in the void. They said, Take 2 portals each, just in case. Immediately, a group of autarch beasts charged forward. In less than 3 breaths of time, the portal had been snatched clean. Go! The inner demons waved their hands. Dong! Whoosh! The group of autarch beasts immediately dispersed. Some dived into the sea. Some soared high into the sky. Soon, they all disappeared from the inner demon's sight. Boss Qin, can you bring me around the castle? Lei Bao rolled his eyes and said with a flattering smile. The inner demons glanced at it, and with a thought, both of them appeared in the castle. This is the castle? It's too small. Lei Bao sized up the surroundings, feeling shocked. Initially, it thought that the castle was very big and could accommodate at least a few hundred people. However, the castle that it saw now could accommodate dozens of people. It was already very good. The inner demons ignored it. It opened the 6-word formula and continued to copy the first stroke of the Xing formula. Although it could increase its cultivation level to a 9-star combat emperor by activating the killing formula, it was far from enough to deal with those pseudo-gods. Therefore, it had to race against time to cultivate. Time flew by. Another 10 days passed in the castle. Only 1 day had passed in the outside world. 2/10 of the Xing formula had been copied. Buzz! Early morning. There was a sudden movement in the image crystal. The inner demons took out the image crystal. Lu Zheng's virtual image quickly appeared and asked, Have you found Auntie? The inner demons shook its head. It's been a day and you haven't found her. What are you doing? Lu Zheng said angrily. The inner demons was also angry. I don't even know where their nest is. How can I find her? Lu Zheng's face darkened. The inner demons frowned and said, Is it because you can't hold on? That's not it. It will take at least a few days to determine the winner of a chess game between pseudo-gods. I'm just worried that a long delay will cause trouble. Lu Zheng said. The inner demon said, I've already sent more than 100 9-star combat emperors to search yesterday. Don't worry too much. Just delay the Imperial Master. More than 100 9-star combat emperors? How did you get so many subordinates? Lu Zheng was surprised. The inner demon said, there are more than 100 9-star combat emperors in the ancient pagoda. I've subdued all of them. TSK, TSK, TSK. Lu Zheng was speechless. He sneered and said, the people and beasts that you've painstakingly cultivated are all under your command. I think that old thing must be hopping mad. The inner demons also smiled coldly. Well, you try to hurry up. Second Grandpa and I will try to delay as long as possible. Lu Zheng said. The inner demons nodded. After ending the conversation, the inner demons began to copy the Xing formula again. Now that Dan Wangkai was helping him to refine pills, he was a lot less worried. He didn't have to refine battle chi pills anymore. He only had to focus on cultivation. Inside the ancient castle. Another 10 days passed. The first stroke of the Xing formula had been copied by 3/10. The inner demons could no longer calm down. He took Lei Bao and left the ancient castle. He stood in the sky above the sea and looked around. He was very irritated. 2 days had passed. Why was there still no news? Suddenly, he closed his eyes and peered into the hearts of Wang Yongfeng and the others and the 9-star combat emperors. But soon, he opened his eyes and rubbed his head. There were too many targets peeking at once. The amount of information was too much. His head was about to explode. Huff. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes again. He peeked one by one. Nothing. Nothing. Still nothing. He peeked one by one, but there was no good news. This made him, who was already irritated, even more irritated. He was almost going crazy. What am I annoyed about? I am the inner demons. How can I be controlled by these emotions? He roared in his heart. However, he just couldn't control his inner emotions. Bas! Just as he was about to peek at Wang Yongfeng and Wang Yishan, the image crystal suddenly rang. The inner demons hurriedly took it out. Battle chi surged and the image crystal was revived. Immediately, a red-haired old man appeared. It was Wang Yishan. Wang Yishan said excitedly, Young master, I met 2 young people. The inner demons perked up and hurriedly asked, Where are they? Wang Yishan said, On a deserted island, but I don't know if they are the descendants of the Grand Preceptor. The inner demons said, Give me the coordinates and watch them. I will go there right away. Okay. Wang Yishan nodded and gave the inner demons the coordinates. Boom. The inner demons immediately opened a portal, hit his aura, and rushed in with Lei Bao. The next moment, he descended into a dense forest. Wang Yishan stood at the side. Sensing the aura of the inner demons, he immediately turned to look at the inner demons and bowed. Greetings, young master. The inner demons nodded and asked, Where are they? Over there. Wang Yishan pointed forward. The inner demons raised his head and looked. Outside the dense forest, there was a wide swamp. And in the swamp, there were 2 young men in purple. Each of them held a sharp sword in their hands. As they walked, they slashed at the thorns of the vines, as if they were looking for something. What are they looking for? The inner demons asked. I don't know. Wang Yishan shook his head. The inner demons sized up the 2 of them, his eyes flashing with blood-red light. Both of them looked to be around 20 years old. One was tall and the other was short, but their cultivation bases were extremely shocking. One was an 8-star combat emperor, and the other was a 9-star combat emperor. And the clothes they wore were very luxurious. Ordinary people don't even have the guts to enter the sea of reincarnation, let alone wander around this deserted island. I think they should be the descendants of the Imperial Master. The inner demons said. Wang Yishan's eyes turned cold and said, Then I'll go and capture them. Don't be hasty. Since they appeared here, it means that their lair is not far from here. Later, follow them and enter their lair. The inner demons' eyes flashed with cold light. Wang Yishan nodded. The inner demons asked, "Oh right, where are Wang Yongfeng and the others?" Wang Yishan whispered, "They suspect that the Imperial Master's lair might be on this island, so they went to search around." The inner demons nodded and closed his eyes. He said telepathically, "I'll give you the coordinates. Come and meet up immediately. Remember, hide your aura." This sentence immediately rang in the minds of everyone and all the 9-star Emperor beasts. The slave seal could not only spy on the thoughts of others, but also transmit messages from 1,000 miles away. Of course, only Qin Feiyong could transmit messages. Those who were controlled could not transmit messages. Whoosh! Wang Yongfeng and the others were the first to return. The seal returned with them. How was it? The inner demons asked. Wang Yongfeng said, "We searched the entire island, but we didn't find a single house." The inner demons' eyes flickered. Soon, the seahorse and another group of people also arrived. Then, the 100 or so autark beasts also arrived. What's going on? Why are there so many 9-star sovereign beasts suddenly? Looking at the group of 9-star sovereign beasts, both the seahorse and the seal were dumbfounded. Lei Bao said proudly, "They're all my underlings. What do you think? Awesome, right?" The seahorse's eyes trembled, and it immediately went up to Lei Bao and smiled obsequiously. "Big brother, you're too awesome. I've decided to follow you from now on." Coward! The seal's eyes were full of disdain. Looking at the two beasts and the other autark beasts, Wang Yongfeng and the others looked at each other and sighed. How long had it been? The young master had actually subdued so many 9-star sovereign beasts. He was indeed a dragon among men. With this force, who would dare to be presumptuous in front of the young master in the future? All of you go to the ancient pagoda first. Elder Wang, Wang Yishan, and Lei Bao can stay outside. The inner demons waved his hand. Except for Wang Yongfeng, the seahorse, and Lei Bao, the others and the beasts instantly disappeared. At this moment, the two purple-robed young men had already entered the depths of the swamp. Follow them. With that, the inner demons led Wang Yongfeng, the seahorse, and Lei Bao out of the dense forest and into the swamp. They silently followed behind the two. There were poisonous insects everywhere in the swamp. But that didn't affect anything. The 3 men and 1 beast passed through as if there was no one around. Soon, the group entered the central area of the swamp. Found it. At this moment, the tall young man exclaimed happily. Where is it? Hearing that, the short young man quivered and quickly asked. There. The tall young man pointed to a small mound more than 10 meters to the left. The short young man looked in the direction he pointed, and a look of ecstasy immediately appeared on his face. What made them so excited? Seeing that. Chapter 1264. Immediately, they saw a small crimson tree on top of the mound. The small tree was about 1 meter tall, and the trunk was as thick as a baby's arm. There were 3 branches in total, but there were no leaves. However, at the top of the 3 branches, there were 3 red fruits hanging. These 3 fruits were the size of a palm. The shape was very strange. Like a baby. That's right. The 3 fruits were in the shape of a baby, and even the face and outline were very clear. What fruit is that? Wang Yongfeng was surprised. The small mound was 5 or 6 meters tall, but except for the small tree, there was not even a weed. Obviously, it was because of the small tree. The small tree contained some kind of magic power, and other plants could not survive. I have seen it before. Lei Bao suddenly said. N. The inner demons, Wang Yongfeng, and Wang Yishan all turned to look at it. I remember that a few years ago, the Valley Master came to me. At that time, he took out an identical fruit and said that as long as I followed him, he would give the fruit to me. Lei Bao said. Wang Yishan asked, then did he say what effect this fruit has? Yes. Lei Bao nodded, thought for a moment, and said, he said that this is called the spiritual infant fruit, which can be used to refine the spirit congealing pill and has the effect of condensing the divine soul. Spiritual infant fruit. Condensing the divine soul. Wang Yishan and Wang Yongfeng looked at each other, their eyes full of shock. Spirit congealing pill. At the same time, the inner demon's eyes also trembled slightly. If he remembered correctly, there seemed to be a record of the spirit congealing pill in the alchemy scripture. Fatso, quickly check the alchemy scripture. The next moment, the voice of the inner demon sounded in Fatso's mind. Fatso in the castle immediately got up, ran to the altar, and opened the alchemy scripture. Immediately, he was refreshed and said, Boss, that's right, the spiritual infant fruit is the medicinal material for refining the spirit congealing pill, and it is the most important medicinal material. What about the effect of the spirit congealing pill? The inner demons asked. Fatso carefully looked at the information about the spirit congealing pill and said, "Indeed, as Lei Bao said, the spirit congealing pill can help creatures condense the divine soul." The inner demon smirked. Who would have thought that under a freak combination of factors, he would actually encounter such a divine item? He was determined to get this sapling. Meanwhile, the two purple-clothed young men glanced at each other, then ran to the small tree excitedly. The short young man squatted beside the small tree. His eyes were full of greed. He asked, "Brother E, should we take away the small tree or just these 3 fruits?" The tall young man said, "Such a divine object, of course, should be brought back together with the small tree and planted in the medicinal field." "You're right. If we leave it here, it might be ruined by the sea beasts." The short young man nodded. The tall youth smiled and said, "Then let's start quickly. Be careful. Don't hurt its roots." "All right." The short young man grinned and took out a dagger. He dug the soil around the little tree while smiling happily. "When we bring this spiritual infant tree back, the patriarch will definitely reward us. Who knows, he might even reward us with a divine technique." "Yeah." The tall young man nodded and glanced at the nascent soul tree and the 3 spiritual infant fruits. A cold light flashed in his eyes. The next moment, he waved his hand and a black dagger appeared. He grabbed the dagger and walked behind the short young man. While the short young man was unprepared, he stabbed the dagger into the short young man's skull. Immediately, blood splattered. "Brother EU." The short young man was shocked and furious. "Do you think such a divine object is something you can get your hands on? Moreover, I don't like it when others steal my credit. Only I have the right to have a divine technique." The tall young man smiled in disdain. He pulled out the dagger and kicked the short young man's back. "Ah!" The short young man screamed and fell into the swamp in front of him. He was swallowed by the mud. Tisk, tsk, tsk. Their relationship must not be ordinary. But in the face of temptation, he killed the other party mercilessly. "This person is really vicious." Lei Bao was speechless. This is the way of the world. You can't trust anyone except yourself. The inner demon smiled coldly. Lei Bao's heart skipped a beat. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I won't stab you in the back." "Do you dare?" The inner demons looked at him with a playful expression. Lei Bao's body stiffened and he smiled embarrassedly. Qin Feiyong knew what it was thinking. How would it dare to do such a thing? Wang Yongfeng asked, "Young lord, when should we do it?" The inner demon said, "He's just a 9-star combat emperor. It doesn't matter if we kill him sooner or later. Don't alert them. Let's wait until we find their lair." Wang Yongfeng nodded. Then there was the tall young man. Seeing the short young man being swallowed by the swamp, he immediately squatted on the ground and carefully uprooted the spiritual infant tree. "I'm going to be rich this time. The ancestral patriarch will definitely reward me with a divine technique." The tall young man looked at the spiritual infant tree with a greedy face. He then put it into his Chenkuan pouch and opened a portal. He walked in without looking back. "Let's go." The inner demons' eyes flashed red. They turned into rays of light with Lei Bao and Wang Yishan and rushed into the portal before it disappeared. In the next moment, a group of people landed in the sky above a city. As soon as the tall young man appeared, he was about to rush down to the city below. Suddenly, he felt someone behind him. He turned around suspiciously. When he saw Qin Feiyong and the others, his expression changed abruptly as he shouted, "Who are you people?" "Kill him," the inner demon said coldly. Wang Yishan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He pointed his index finger in the air and a ray of battle chi appeared and entered the young man's forehead. The young man screamed and died on the spot. Then, Wang Yishan snatched the young man's Chenkuan pouch and respectfully handed it to the inner demons. The inner demons waved his hand and the Chenkuan pouch disappeared. He then looked around. This was a large island with a diameter of more than 10,000 miles. The city was located in the center of the island. "Who are you? How dare you come here and commit murder?" At the same time, the young man's scream startled the people in the city below. A black-haired old man flew up and caught the young man's body. He then looked at the inner demons and Lei Bao with a gloomy expression. "A mere 1-star combat emperor dares to yell at the young lord. You're courting death." Wang Yishan's hair fluttered in anger as he grabbed at the air. A terrifying battle chi poured down like a waterfall. The black-haired old man was shocked. What a powerful aura. He did not hesitate and immediately took the young man's body and escaped. However, he was only a one-star combat emperor. How could he escape from Wang Yishan's pursuit? Boom! The battle chi surged and instantly drowned the two people. Accompanied by a painful scream, the black-haired old man and the young man's bodies were crushed on the spot. Not even their bones were left. A strong enemy is here. The entire city is on alert. An angry roar sounded in the city. The people in the city were immediately in an uproar. Boom! At the same time, thousands of emperor auras exploded in the city. Following closely, like a meteor shower, numerous figures shot up into the sky and surrounded Heart Demon, and Lei Bao. Among these people, there were men and women, old and young. However, without exception, they all had the cultivation of a combat emperor. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent. However, the inner demons turned a blind eye to these people and continued to scan the island. On the island, other than the city below, there was a towering mountain range. The mountain range was not far from the city. It was only 100 miles away. In the mountain range, he could clearly sense thousands of powerful auras. None of these auras were lower than a 5-star combat emperor. In other words, there were at least thousands of 5-star combat emperors in the mountain range. I didn't expect such a terrifying force to be hidden in the sea of reincarnation. The inner demons smirked and looked down at the city below. The city covered an area of 200 to 300 miles and there were more than 1 million people in the city. Among these million people, there was not a single mortal. They were all cultivators. Among them, combat emperors, combat masters, and combat saints made up the majority. However, every single person here had a bloody aura that he loathed. That's right. It was the aura of the blood demon pill. Who are you? Why did you kill my people? A middle-aged man in a purple robe roared as he glanced at Xueqi and the others. The inner demons raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man. He asked coldly, "Who are you?" The middle-aged man said, "I am the city lord of this city." The inner demons asked, "Who is the imperial tutor to you?" The imperial tutor. The middle-aged man's pupils shrank. The others were also surprised. The inner demon said, "You should all be the descendants of the imperial tutor." The group was silent, but the murderous intent in their eyes was even stronger than before. Looks like I didn't come to the wrong place. The inner demons laughed and scanned them one by one. Although no one answered him, their eyes said everything. He waved his hand and said, "Don't leave anyone alive. Kill them all." Wang Yongfeng was shocked and asked, "Including the people in the city?" "Yes. I want this place to be barren." The inner demon said word by word. Hearing this, even the savage Lei Bao couldn't help but tremble. One had to know. There were millions of people here. The inner demons raised his eyebrows and said, "Do you need me to say it again?" Wang Yongfeng and Lei Bao's eyes trembled. Boom! In the next moment, the aura of a 9-star combat emperor erupted and surged in all directions. Not good. They are all 9-star combat emperors. Run. The middle-aged man's expression changed. But before he finished speaking, Lei Bao appeared in front of him and laughed sinisterly. "Don't blame me. This is Boss Qin's order." After saying that, he opened his wide mouth and revealed his sharp fangs. He bit off the middle-aged man's head in one bite. Blood spurted out like a fountain and dyed the sky red. At the same time, Wang Yishan and Wang Yongfeng waved their hands. Battle chi rolled out like a torrent and rushed toward the surrounding crowd. The void twisted crazily. The city below collapsed under that terrifying aura. Countless people were affected and there were a large number of casualties. Why? Why are you doing this? Chapter 1265. Because you are the descendants of the Imperial Master. If I don't kill you today, the entire Great Qin Empire will be plunged into misery and suffering when you betray us in the future. Therefore, only by annihilating all of you can we stop this calamity. The inner demon said expressionlessly. His cold eyes were like the grim reaper from hell. It was terrifying. Who has the guts to cause trouble in this old man's territory? However, before the inner demons finished speaking, a loud shout came from the mountain range outside the city. The voice was like thunder, resounding through the sky. The inner demons looked up with cold eyes. However, the people in the city were overjoyed. Great Ancestor, come and save us. This person has gone crazy and threatened to kill all of our people. We can't let them escape. The people shouted. Bastards, don't run if you have the guts. Let's see how the Great Ancestor will deal with you. Not only the Great Ancestor, the other ancestors will definitely come. They are all powerful. Just wait for your death. I don't even know what your eyes are for. How dare you come and provoke us? Just wait and see. You will end up in a miserable state. There were also some who looked at Heart Demon's group and lay bow, mocking them and sneering. Noisy! Wang Yishan shouted. He waved his hand and battle chi surged like a tide, sweeping across the sky. Run! The people in the sky above the city panicked. Whoosh! However, at this moment, an old figure appeared out of thin air in front of him. It was an old man in red. He was 7 feet tall and had a ruddy face and white hair. His back was straight and he looked quite strong. His dark eyes were filled with bone-chilling coldness. As soon as the old man appeared, he raised his arm and slapped the air without saying a word. A fiery red battle chi emerged and turned into a wave of fire that covered the sky. It rushed toward Wang Yishan's battle chi. Boom! The two battle chi collided. Wang Yishan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered back a few steps. So powerful! His pupils contracted and he stared at the old man in red vigilantly. This person's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. Grand Ancestor, kill them quickly and avenge our clansmen. Several middle-aged men ran up to the red-clothed old man and glared at the inner demons with hatred as they roared. Don't worry. None of them will be able to escape today. The red-clothed old man smiled coldly and said, This old man wants to see who is so audacious. After saying that, he looked up at the inner demons. Immediately, the red-clothed old man's eyes widened, his old face filled with disbelief. On the other hand, the inner demons had a playful look on their faces. How could it be you? The red-clothed old man looked as if he had seen a ghost. His previous arrogance had completely disappeared, leaving behind a face of panic. The inner demons teased. I heard you say that none of us will be able to escape today. Now answer me. Do you really have the ability to do so? The red-clothed old man's body stiffened, and his face turned green and red. Great Ancestor, what happened? Who is he? Why are you so afraid? The middle-aged men stared at the red-robed old man in bewilderment. He is. The red-clothed old man's mouth was dry and his throat seemed to be stuck by something. He couldn't even say the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Who the hell is it? Someone roared anxiously. He is Qin Feiyang. Everyone, run. Second brother. Inform father immediately. Tell him that Qin Feiyang is here. Come back to support him immediately. The red-clothed old man exerted all his strength and suddenly roared. His voice was like a great bell, resounding through the sky. What? He is Qin Feiyang. Hearing the red-clothed old man's voice, the entire island instantly fell into a dead silence. But the next moment, there was an uproar here. Everyone's face changed, and everyone was terrified. Damn it! How could it be him? How could he find this place? Run! Don't look back. No one would have thought that the fiend in front of them was actually the infamous Qin Feiyang. At this moment, except for the red-clothed old man, everyone was frantically fleeing in horror. Father? The inner demons was slightly stunned. He looked at the red-clothed old man suspiciously and waved his hand. Lei Bao, go over immediately. Don't let anyone spread the news. Roger. Lei Bao roared into the sky and rushed toward the mountain range with the power of thunder that could destroy the world. Your opponent is me. The red-clothed old man roared and hurriedly went to stop them. No. Your opponent is us. Wang Yongfeng and Wang Yishan looked at each other and immediately joined forces to attack the red-clothed old man. Do you think the two of you can stop me? The red-clothed old man laughed angrily and raised his hands without backing down. He clenched his fingers into fists and punched at the two of them. The roar of battle aura shook the surroundings. How would we know if we don't try? Wang Yongfeng snorted coldly. The two of them were unwilling to retreat at all. They raised their fists and punched. Boom! In less than an instant, the four fists collided with a loud bang. Wang Yongfeng and Ishan were immediately forced back, blood flowing from the corners of their mouths. However, the red-clothed old man only took a few steps back and his face was slightly pale. Although we are all 9-star combat emperors, I have already stepped into the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. I am only one step away from the false god realm. No matter how powerful you are no match for me. The red-clothed old man's face was full of disdain. Don't be arrogant, Wang Yongfeng shouted. Today, we will settle the old and new grudges together. Wang Yishan shouted angrily. Boom! The two of them unleashed their auras and joined forces to attack again. Their bodies exuded a substantial murderous aura. Boom! At the same time, the battle at the mountain range finally began. The 9 old men rushed into the sky and fought with Lei Bao until the sky turned dark. The aura that the 9 old men exuded was almost on par with the red-clothed old man. Obviously, their cultivation had also stepped into the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. However, although Lei Bao was fighting alone, he was not at a disadvantage at all. His terrifying aura spread in all directions and he had the demeanor of a king who looked down on the world. In addition, there was another group of people who rushed out of the mountain range and rushed toward them with murderous intent. Their eyes were locked on the inner demons. Capture the leader first. Their plan was to capture the inner demons. As long as they captured the inner demons, the others would be defeated without a fight. Each one is more naive than the other. The inner demons glanced at them one by one and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Whoosh! In the next moment, figures and ferocious beasts appeared out of thin air behind inner demon. What? So many 9-star combat emperors and 9-star emperor beasts? The red-clothed old man's expression changed. Just as he was distracted, Wang Yongfeng and Wang Yishan took the opportunity to punch him in the chest. With a puff, the red-clothed old man suddenly spat out blood and smashed into the city below. Kill! Wang Yongfeng and Wang Yishan looked at each other and rushed down with monstrous murderous intent. The inner demon smiled coldly and pointed to the mountain range. He shouted, "Go and help. Leave no one alive. Brothers, kill." The seahorse and the seal roared and rushed to the front. Although they were all emperors of the Sea of Reincarnation, it was their first time seeing such a big scene. The blood in their bodies could not help but boil. Seeing how crazy they were, the other hundreds of 9-star monarch beasts also flew toward the mountain range in a grandiose manner. Haha! They are all my underlings. You old bastards, don't you feel very desperate now? Lei Bao laughed wildly. As for the 9 old men who were fighting against it, their faces were extremely gloomy. Qin Feiyang came prepared this time. Young lord, we will stay and protect you. The 16 9-star combat emperors in the village stood beside the inner demons and looked around the battlefield vigilantly. No need. You guys go and help Lei Bao. Don't give anyone a chance to send a message. The inner demons said. Yes. The 16 of them responded respectfully. Then, they tore through the sky and flew towards the mountain range like lightning. The inner demons looked down at the old man in red and sneered. Do you see that? They were all trained by the Grand Master, but now they are all under my command. When the old man in red heard this, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Wang Yongfeng and the other 2 slapped his chest again. Accompanied by the sound of bones breaking, his entire chest caved in. It had even almost shattered his heart. Since you have obtained your freedom, why do you still work for Qin Feiyang? What's the difference between you and before? The old man in red roared angrily. Of course there is a difference. The Imperial Preceptor captured us to use us as cannon fodder, to rear us like livestock. But the young lord is different. He treats each of us sincerely and treats us as his friends and family. We are willing to work for him. We will not regret it until we die. The 2 of them roared and unleashed their peak combat strength. They attacked the old man in red from both sides. You are willing to be used as a pawn and you will not regret it until you die. What a joke. The old man in red laughed angrily. He took a healing pill and fought with the 2 of them again. Boom. Mountains and rivers collapsed and the earth sank. It was like the end of the world. What a good, I will not regret it until I die. You have all lived up to the kindness this sovereign has shown you. The inner demons muttered to himself. Back in the ancient pagoda, when Qin Feiyang planned to let Wang Yongfeng and the others go, He felt that Qin Feiyong was too soft-hearted. But now, he felt that Qin Feiyong was right. Because if Qin Feiyong hadn't done that back then, he wouldn't have such a group of loyal subordinates now. Am I crazy? You actually agree with my actions? No, if this goes on, I won't be the inner demons anymore. The inner demons shook his head vigorously and disappeared in the next moment. In fact, the more he denied it, the deeper his feelings for everyone. Inside the ancient pagoda, the inner demons stood in the sky above the village and shouted, "All combat emperors gather." Whoosh! Immediately, figures soared into the sky. In less than 5 breaths of time, the more than 1,000 combat emperors in the village were all gathered in the void in front of the inner demons. The inner demons was very satisfied with everyone's speed. With a wave of his hand, he led everyone to appear in the sky above the island. Seeing the tragic battlefield in front of them, everyone was tongue-tied. When had they ever seen such a scene? The inner demon said, "Your mission is to kill everyone below the war emperor." "Young master, could this be?" an old woman said. The inner demons asked, "You want to say cruel?" The old woman did not deny it. "If we don't kill them today, many people will die in their hands in the future, including you. Also, they are all refining the blood fiend pill and have a lot of sins. Shouldn't such people be eliminated? You all say that I am cruel. I do not deny it, but I do not regret it either. If the heavens want to punish me, I am willing to bear all the sins alone. Now, do as I say immediately." The inner demons shouted. "Yes." The group of people replied respectfully. Then they turned into streaks of light and flew in all directions. In this world, good and evil, right and wrong, who can say for sure? The inner demons looked up at the sky and muttered to himself. Then, he retracted his gaze and scanned the island below. Chapter 1266. Crack. Boom. On the island, battle chi, battle arts, battle souls, and sacred weapons were everywhere. The ground collapsed and the waves roared. A series of deafening noises could be heard. There were also howls of despair, roars of anger, and chilling battle cries that lingered on incessantly. Both sides had entered a fierce battle and would not rest until one of them was dead. The inner demons was like a god fiend, scanning the surroundings with his hands behind his back. "It seems that I have to start with this person if I want to find out where Mother is." Suddenly, the inner demons looked at the old man in red with a cold glint in his eyes. Then, he looked at Wang Yongfeng and the other man and said, "You two go and help. I'll deal with this person." "Yes." The two of them replied respectfully. "You want to leave? No way." The old man in red sneered. He waved his hands and his battle chi surged. Boom. In the next moment, a black moon rose slowly, emitting a monstrous divine power. Divine technique. Wang Yongfeng and the other man's expressions changed. They were no stranger to this divine technique. That was because the middle-aged man had used this divine technique to deal with them. "Go to hell." The old man in red smiled sinisterly. The black moon streaked across the sky and charged towards Wang Yongfeng and the other man. "Young master." The two of them hurriedly shouted. Swoosh. Before they finished speaking, the inner demons flashed in front of the two of them and raised his hand to slap them. Whoosh. Golden light surged and swept across the sky. With a loud bang, the black moon and the golden light collided with a loud bang, erupting with a dazzling divine light that made the world pale. "What the hell?" The old man in red's eyes widened. However, under the impact of the golden light, the black moon actually turned in the air and charged towards him. Was this the legendary divine technique, giving one a taste of their own medicine? Suddenly, he shuddered and suddenly came back to his senses, then hurriedly dodged. Almost at the same moment he dodged, the black moon swept past him. Although he did not receive a direct hit, the terrifying divine power still tore his clothes. His skin instantly cracked and was dripping with blood. That was close. The old man in red was terrified. If not for his quick reaction and timely dodge, he might have really died under his own divine technique. Dying to his own deity incantation would be a joke if word got out. "You don't think you're out of danger, do you?" But before he could calm down, a sinister laugh suddenly rang in his ears. The red-clothed old man's body trembled. He turned his head instinctively, and his face turned deathly pale. He didn't know when the inner demons had appeared behind him. He was so close to him. Actually, when the golden light collided with the black moon, the inner demons used phantom steps and rushed behind the red-clothed old man. At that time, the collision between the return character formula and the black moon produced a divine light that was enough to block anyone's vision. In addition, the red-clothed old man was deeply shocked by the return character formula, so he did not notice it. If you're so arrogant just because you've grasped one deity technique, then wouldn't I, someone who has multiple deity techniques, be as arrogant as the heavens? The inner demons grinned in disdain. As he spoke, he raised his index finger and lightly tapped the old man. A wisp of crimson sword chi swept out and tore open the old man's flesh before disappearing into a sea of chi. Ah! The red-clothed old man immediately howled miserably. His sea of chi was instantly shattered by the crimson sword chi. No matter how strong a person was, once his sea of chi was destroyed, he would immediately become a cripple. Immediately, the red-clothed old man's aura dissipated, and he fell down powerlessly. But he endured the pain and shouted, "We're no match for Qin Feiyong. Don't fight anymore. Run." Big brother. The 9 old men who were fighting with Lei Bao and the others hurriedly looked at the red-clothed old man, and their expressions changed drastically. Grand ancestor. When the others saw the red-clothed old man's situation, they also roared in anger. Quick, run now. The red-clothed old man used all his strength and shouted, "Everyone, run." A black-clothed old man shouted. His hands formed a seal. A black moon rose into the sky, and its divine power was vast and mighty. Lei Bao and the other 9-star emperor beasts were sent flying on the spot. The other 8 old men looked at each other and formed seals at the same time. Black moons continued to appear. In addition to the black moon that the black-clothed old man had formed, there were a total of 9 black moons. 9 black moons floated in the sky, and their terrifying divine power spread in all directions, shaking the heavens. Seeing this scene, even Lei Bao could not remain calm. He did not expect that the 9 of them had mastered a divine art. Kill! The 9 old men roared, and the 9 black moons were like mountains, charging toward Lei Bao and the other beasts. Retreat! Lei Bao roared. The seahorse and the seal took the lead and flew away without looking back. The other 9-star emperor beasts also fled in fear. This was not a battle art, but a divine art. Once a divine art was used, who would dare to fight against it? Watch him carefully. Don't let him find a chance to kill himself. The inner demon stared at the 9 black moons, and his eyes flickered with a fierce light as he said to Wang Yongfeng and the other 2 behind him. Yes. The 2 responded respectfully and rushed toward the red-clothed old man. At the same time, the inner demons took a step forward, looked at the 9 old men, and sneered. With me around, you don't have the right to be arrogant. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, a surge of purplish-gold dragon aura soared into the sky. A purplish-gold divine dragon appeared in an instant. Roar! The purplish-gold divine dragon danced in the sky, and its dragon aura was vast and mighty, letting out a loud dragon roar. Immediately, a formless sound wave flooded the sky like a tide and rushed toward the 9 black moons. The second style of the divine dragon technique, divine dragon's roar. The 9 old men's eyes trembled. Whoosh! Boom! The sound wave roared in the sky, as if thousands of soldiers and horses were galloping past. The void was distorted to the extreme, almost shattering. Get out of the way! Lei Bao roared, turned around, and rushed down. The seahorse and the other 9-star emperor beasts quickly followed. The confrontation between divine arts could easily destroy the world. If one was hit directly, they would definitely be injured, if not killed. The red-clothed old man was already under the control of Wang Yongfeng and the other 2. At this moment, he was standing in the void, looking at the 9 black moons and the sound wave, his old face full of nervousness. Because he knew this was a fateful collision. If Qin Feiyong won, all the clansmen here would definitely die today. If Qin Feiyong lost, it would be a turning point. In the blink of an eye, Lei Bao and the other beasts had safely escaped, and the sound wave finally collided with the 9 black moons. Boom! Suddenly, a series of loud explosions sounded like rolling thunder, and countless people's ears were ringing. Immediately after, a wave of qi that could destroy the world appeared out of thin air and rolled out in all directions like a raging wave in a vast ocean. At this moment, the void shook, and the sky trembled. Rolling waves rose in the thousands of miles of sea, covering the sky and the sun. The sea beasts in the sea also fled at the sight of the wind. So scary. The eyes of Lei Bao and the other 9-star emperor beasts were filled with shock. If not for the inner demons, the 9 black moons would definitely chase after them. In the end, no matter how hard they struggled, they would be buried under the 9 black moons. There was no suspense. Because divine arts were that terrifying. At this moment, everyone stared fixedly at the sky, waiting to see who would be the victor of this battle. Woo-woo! In the sky, the wind howled. The invisible sound wave with monstrous power pounced on the 9 black moons one after another. For a moment, it was a stalemate. Fighting against 9 great divine arts alone and not falling into a disadvantageous position, this divine dragon art is too heaven-defying. Whether it was the descendants of the state preceptor or Wang Yongfeng and the others, their hearts were in turmoil at this moment. Crack! Suddenly, a deafening sound suddenly sounded. The next scene made everyone unable to extricate themselves. The black moon at the very front, accompanied by the loud sound from before, actually shattered into pieces. At the same time when the black moon shattered, the old man in black spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. Obviously, the owner of this black moon was him. How is this possible? His old face was full of disbelief. But this was just the beginning. Crack! Accompanied by a second loud sound, the second black moon also shattered. A white-clothed old man next to the black-haired old man also spat out a mouthful of blood. Crack! Following closely, the third, fourth, and fifth black moons also shattered one after another. The sound wave was like a group of ferocious beasts, overwhelming and unstoppable. The sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth black moons also shattered one after another, turning into nothingness. The combined strength of the 9 of us can't even block a sound wave. Is the divine dragon art so heaven-defying? The 9 people's eyes were dull, and their faces were filled with despair. The powerful divine dragon art not only destroyed their confidence, but also made them lose their fighting spirit and courage. In their eyes, the divine dragon art was an invincible existence. It's not the last step yet, don't give up. The red-clothed old man roared. If even the black-clothed old man and the others gave up, then there was no hope. Yes. We can't give up. It wasn't easy for us to get to where we are today. We definitely can't die in the hands of this little bastard. The black-clothed old man roared. The white-clothed old man next to him shouted, "Yes, as long as we work together, there's no obstacle that we can't overcome. Kill! Kill!" The 9 people roared into the sky, and their killing intent soared into the clouds. Once again, they formed 9 black moons and charged toward the inner demons. The inner demons stepped on the void, looking at the 9 people coldly. With every step he took, the void would tremble violently. His blood-red hair danced in the wind, and his clothes fluttered. His entire body was surrounded by a bloody aura. At this moment, he was a living god of death. The light of a firefly wants to compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon. How laughable! Glancing at the 9 black moons, the inner demons waved his hand, and a purple-gold dragon aura poured out, rushing into the clouds like a waterfall. Rumble! Crack! In the sky, a violent wind suddenly blew, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. A divine statue appeared at the top of the sky. The divine statue was more than 100 feet tall, and its entire body emitted a purple-gold divine light. Waves of majestic emperor's aura poured down from the sky. At this moment, whether it was the 9-star combat the arch or the 9-star monarch beast, under the shroud of the emperor's aura, they could not help but tremble both physically and mentally. Some of them even knelt on the ground to worship. I have the inheritance of my ancestor, and I have the will of my ancestor. My every move, my every word, and my every action represent the supreme power of the emperor. My words are the sacred decree. Those who dare to disobey will be killed without mercy. Chapter 1267. As soon as he finished speaking, the statue at the top of the sky raised the broken sword in its hand and slashed in the air. A shocking sword aura suddenly swept out and slashed at the 9 black moons like lightning. Boom! Accompanied by 9 earth-shaking loud noises, the 9 black moons shattered on the spot. Poof! The old man in black and his group were also immediately sent flying. Blood gushed out and their faces were as pale as paper. What a terrifying divine dragon technique. What a terrifying emperor aura. This child already has the aura of an emperor. Everyone present could not help but tremble in their hearts. In fact, when he was very young, Qin Feiyang's aura had already given birth to the emperor aura. But it was not deliberately cultivated by him. It was formed naturally by staying by the emperor's side all year round and being influenced by the emperor. However, ever since he was expelled from the imperial capital, he suppressed this emperor aura in his body. In the past, he had also released the emperor aura a few times, but it was just a small matter. At this moment, the emperor aura in his body was completely released by the inner demons. And compared to before, his emperor aura was now on a higher level, even comparable to the current emperor. You have already been abolished as a prince, but you still cultivated such a terrifying emperor aura. Aren't you plotting a rebellion? The old man in black said angrily. So, the inner demons were playful. The old man in black said, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend. We can totally join forces." The inner demons said, "Join forces to destroy the empire that our ancestor built? The late emperor is already dead." The old man in black said in a deep voice. "He is just missing." The inner demons said. The old man in black roared, "Missing for more than 10,000 years, what's the difference between that and being dead?" The inner demon suddenly raised his arm and pointed at the statue at the top of the sky. He said coldly, "The statue of our ancestor is right here, and you still dare to say such disgraceful words. Simple, you deserve death." The old man in black looked up at the statue, his eyes trembling. "Even if our ancestor is really dead, he will always live in my heart. Moreover, the country of my Grand Qin isn't something that you juniors can encroach upon." The inner demons waved his hand, and the statue fell from the sky with monstrous emperor aura toward the old man in black and the others. "Run!" The old man in red shouted in despair. "Run! From the moment I descended on this island, your fates were already sealed. Emperor Divine Prison." The inner demon's body shook, and the purple gold dragon's soul roared out, activating its innate special ability. The black-robed old man and the other 8 people were immediately imprisoned in the void, unable to move at all. "It's over. It's over." The red-clothed old man immediately collapsed to the ground, his face filled with pain. "Patriarchs, leave now." Suddenly, a middle-aged man soared into the sky and roared at the black-clothed old man and his group. The red-clothed old man was bewildered. He raised his head and saw a destructive aura erupt from the middle-aged man's body, heading straight for the inner demon. Because the middle-aged man was going to explode his physical body to fight for everyone's survival. The old man in black and the others rekindled their hope. But at the same time, they were extremely sorrowful and aggrieved. They were 9-star combat emperors and had a divine art. But now, they wanted their clansmen to explode their physical bodies to fight for their survival. Just thinking about it made them feel sad. Naive. But the inner demons did not care. Because just as the middle-aged man rushed into the sky, Lei Bao followed. Although the middle-aged man and Lei Bao were both 9-star combat emperors, Lei Bao's speed completely crushed him. Puff! Just as the middle-aged man was about to explode, Lei Bao turned into a thunderbolt and pounced forward. He opened his mouth and bit off the middle-aged man's head. Blood stained the sky. Damn it! Seeing this, the old man in black and the others were devastated. An old man in green gritted his teeth and looked at the old man in black and shouted, "Second brother, you must find a way to save big brother." 10th brother, what do you want to do? The old man in black's expression changed. "We have reached a dead end. We have no other choice." The old man in green shook his head and sighed. A destructive aura rushed out of his body. 10th brother, no. The old man in black roared. "Qin Feiyang, I curse you to die a horrible death." The old man in red roared again and again. "Don't worry, I won't die even if you all die." The inner demon snickered. Seeing that the old man in green was about to succeed in his self-destruction, the statue suddenly rushed forward. The broken sword emitted a dazzling purple-gold divine light. It was peerless. "Ah!" The old man in green screamed. His physical body was cut in half by the sword and he died on the spot. 10th brother? The old man in red and the old man in black and the others suddenly grimaced. It was as if thousands of arrows had pierced their hearts. "I have seen through you people. You self-destruct without a word, so I will not give you a chance to self-destruct. You can try again. Let's see if I kill you first or if you self-destruct first. The inner demons said disdainfully. The Emperor Divine Prison firmly imprisoned the 8 of them. The broken sword was also above their heads. The terrifying sharpness made them feel as if they were in an abyss. So domineering. The seahorse's pupils contracted. It flew to Lei Bao's side and whispered, "Big brother, your master is amazing. Don't you know who I am? Do you think an ordinary person is qualified to be my mount?" Lei Bao said proudly. In the past, it felt ashamed to be Qin Feiyong's mount. But now, after seeing the inner demon's means, it completely submitted and regarded it as an honor. Willing? The seahorse was stunned and could not help but roll its eyes. Whoosh! While the 2 beasts were talking, the inner demons took a step forward and landed in front of the old man in black and the others. That substantial killing intent rushed towards the 8 people, causing their faces to be filled with fear. The inner demons sized up the 8 of them. Suddenly, with a wave of his hand, 8 wisps of battle aura shot out and entered the 8's abdomens. Ah! Accompanied by painful screams, the 8th sea of Qi was directly destroyed. Until then, the inner demons finally heaved a sigh of relief. To be honest, he was really afraid that the 8 of them would self-destruct, because he was not completely confident that he could kill all 8 of them before they self-destructed. And what he said just now was to scare them. Of course, it was not completely a scare. After all, the power of the statue and broken sword was not to be trifled with. But now, he was not worried. The inner demons turned to look at Wang Yongfeng and Lei Bao and said, "Bring that old thing here." Yes. The 2 of them responded respectfully. Then, they brought the old man in red into the Emperor Divine Prison and threw him in front of the inner demons. With the Emperor Divine Prison, the old man in red could stand in the void even without Wang Yongfeng and Lei Bao's help. The inner demons said, "Search their Quanquan bags." The 2 of them nodded and split up. In less than 5 breaths, they took the 9 people's Quanquan bags and returned behind the inner demons. The inner demons glanced at the 9 people, then lowered his head to look at Lei Bao and said, "Take everyone to eliminate the remaining survivors." Understood. Brothers, follow me. The Thunder Leopard roared and led a group of 9-star monarch beasts to the surrounding battlefields. Qin Feiyong, they are all innocent. They don't know anything. Can you let them go? The old man in red begged. When you were refining the blood demon pills, did you ever think that those who died in your hands were also innocent? The inner demon said expressionlessly. How did you know that we were refining the blood demon pills? The old man in red was surprised. There were more than 1 million people, and none of them were mortals. Even an idiot would know that there was something fishy going on. And when it comes to people like you, what I want to do is to eliminate the root of the problem. Speaking of which, I am also eliminating evil for the people. The inner demon smiled coldly. You will die a horrible death. The 9 people roared hysterically. Don't talk nonsense. Tell me immediately, where is my mother and the people of the village? The inner demons said. They are already dead. The old man in red laughed sinisterly. The inner demons said, Don't try to provoke me. It will only be a disaster for you. We are not even afraid of death. What disaster are we afraid of? Show us all your tricks. See if we will beg for mercy. The 9 people laughed coldly. The inner demons glanced at the 9 people. His eyes flickered. These 9 people were smart. They knew that even if they spoke, they would not be able to escape death, so they would not speak easily. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He looked at the old man in red and said, Not long ago, I heard that you sent a message to Lord Father. This so-called Lord Father, could it be the state preceptor? The old man in red did not speak. The inner demons was not angry. He looked at the old man in black and said, The old man who wanted to self-destruct just now, you all called him Old 10. Does this mean that you are all the state preceptor's sons? The old man in black and the others were also silent. The inner demons joked, Can I take your silence as a yes? The old man in red sneered, You think too much. We are just chess pieces in the state preceptor's hands. Don't think about using us to threaten the state preceptor. Is that so? I didn't expect that the state preceptor, that old bastard, had so many sons. But you are really pitiful. For so many years, You can only hide here. The inner demons sneered. The old man in red did not say a word. He just stared at the inner demons with hatred. Of course I know that you can't threaten the state preceptor. Because I know that old man's character too well. Even if you are his sons, he will still abandon you. However, the relationship between the 10 of you should be pretty good, right? The inner demons joked. What do you want to do? The old man in red looked at him warily. I want to see how you will react when you see your brothers dying one by one in front of you. The inner demons licked his lips. His eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty light. Whoosh! He waved his hand. A red sword aura swept out and cut the neck of an old man in white. Blood immediately gushed out. Boom! Then. Chapter 1268. Ah! The old man in white let out a blood-curdling scream. His old face full of panic. As a 9-star combat emperor, the self-healing ability of his physical body was far beyond that of ordinary people. Even without the healing pill, this kind of superficial wound could be quickly healed. But at this moment, he found that the wound could not heal and blood kept flowing out. And it was completely out of control. If this continued, he was afraid that he would bleed to death. What are you doing? Seeing this, the red-clothed old man looked at the inner demons in shock and anger and roared. Nothing. I just think that his blood is very delicious. I want to taste it. The inner demons laughed like a devil. Big brother, save me! The white-haired old man became more and more flustered. In less than 10 breaths, 1/3 of the blood in his body had been lost. His face was as pale as paper. What do you want? The red-clothed old man roared, his heart burning with anxiety. Even if it was a 9-star combat emperor, bleeding too much would lead to death. The inner demons sneered. What do I want? Then let me tell you, for my mother, I can do anything. Even if you kill him, I won't tell you. The red-clothed old man gritted his teeth. Then we'll wait and see. The inner demons laughed, the word kill, between his eyebrows emitting a strong bloody light. More than half of the blood in the white-clothed old man's body had been plundered. Now, he only felt dizzy and weak in body and mind. This was a sign of excessive blood loss. Moreover, his originally full body was gradually shriveling, as if his flesh and blood had been hollowed out. Just kill me! The white-clothed old man roared at the inner demons. Rather than being slowly tortured to death like this, it was better to die directly. If you want to die, it depends on my mood. The inner demons laughed and crazily absorbed the white-clothed old man's blood. Gradually, the white-clothed old man didn't even have the strength to speak. His face was pale and his eyes were dim and turbid. His life fluctuations were also rapidly dissipating. Old 8. The red-clothed old man and his group looked at the white-clothed old man in grief. They never thought that one day, they would fall into the hands of Qin Feiyang. Big brother, you mustn't tell him where his mother is. The white-robed old man looked at the red-robed old man and murmured. After saying that, his eyes slowly closed. His aura was also extremely weak, almost impossible to sense. Old 8. The red-clothed old man's heart ached as tears streamed down his face. He roared, Qin Feiyang, we won't let you go even if we become ghosts. Hee hee. The inner demon smiled faintly and said, I'm afraid you won't even have the chance to become ghosts. After that, the inner demons stopped running the kill formula. As for the white-clothed old man, he was now only skin and bones. Do you think I'll let you die so easily? Jia. The real show has only just begun. Clang. The inner demons smiled sinisterly. With a wave of their hand, Chong Shui appeared. Immediately after, he grabbed Chong Shui and walked up to the white-robed elder. His eyes flashed with bloody light as he said, Tell me, where should I start? What do you mean? The white-robed old man's consciousness had already entered a state of confusion. He couldn't hear what the inner demons were saying at all. However, the others could hear it clearly. They looked at the inner demons in surprise. They didn't know what the inner demons were going to do. Let's start with your eyes. The inner demons licked his lips, slowly raised his arm, grabbed Chong Shui, and stabbed at the white-robed old man's left eye. Stop it. A warrior can be killed but not humiliated. What are you doing? The red-clothed old man and the others' eyes trembled as they hurriedly roared, because they had already realized the purpose of the inner demons. A warrior can be killed but not humiliated. This sentence is directed at those heroes who are admired by people. Are you guys heroes? The inner demons turned his head and looked at them. Then, he suddenly turned his head. The bloody light in his eyes was loud as he stabbed the white-robed old man's left eye. Ah! The excruciating pain immediately woke the white-robed old man up from his dazed state. He howled in pain. The inner demon said without turning his head, "I'm asking you now. Are you going to tell me or not?" "Not telling." The red-clothed old man roared in grief and indignation. The inner demons grinned. He pulled out Xueqi and stabbed it into the white-robed old man's right eye again. Ah! Painful screams resounded through heaven and earth. The inner demon said again, "Tell me? Or not?" The red-clothed old man and the others stared at the inner demons. Their eyes were filled with hatred. They wanted nothing more than to skin the inner demons alive and grind their bones to dust. "I'll make you talk willingly." The inner demons chuckled. He looked at the white-robed old man and said playfully, "What's the next step?" "It's not over yet." The red-clothed old man's heart trembled. He roared, "You're a demon." "You finally said something right." "That's right. I'm a demon." "Not only am I a demon, but I'm also your nightmare." "I think the next step will start with his hands." The inner demons chuckled. He raised his hand and slashed. The white-robed old man's left arm was chopped off on the spot. It fell down with a splash of blood. "Tell me? Or not?" The inner demons asked again. The red-clothed old man and the others were silent. If looks could kill, the inner demons would have died many times over. At this moment, the white-robed old man was already numb. He could no longer feel pain. The aura of death was enveloping him. He was like a dead dog, imprisoned in the Emperor Divine prison. The game has just begun. You can't die like this. Otherwise, it'll be too boring. The inner demons chuckled. He took out a healing pill with 6 veins and a blood coagulation pill and stuffed them into the white-robed old man's mouth. The healing pill was naturally to heal the white-robed old man's wounds. The blood coagulation pill was to restore the white-robed old man's lost blood. With the healing pill and blood coagulation pill, it would be difficult for the white-robed old man to die even if he wanted to. "You're too cruel. You're inhumane. You're a beast." The red-clothed old man and the others roared in despair. The inner demon's intention was too obvious. It was nothing more than hanging the white-robed old man's life and slowly torturing him. How could there be such a cruel person in this world? Cruel? Then let me ask you, which one of your hands isn't stained with blood and heinous sins? The inner demon sneered. He raised the Xueqi and nimbly chopped off the white-robed old man's other arm. "Beast! You'll die a horrible death." The group of people roared. The inner demons didn't care at all. He said lightly, "Don't always say this. My ears are going to grow calluses from hearing it. Say something new." "Not ashamed but proud. I've been roaming the world for thousands of years, but I've never seen someone as shameless as you." The red-clothed old man roared. "Shameless?" The inner demons was stunned. He turned to look at the red-clothed old man and said with a smile, "Then I'll let you have a taste of true despair." After saying that, he looked down and saw a few emperor beasts passing by. He shouted, "I'll reward you with this person." He waved his hand. The white-robed old man flew toward the emperor beasts like a meteorite. When the emperor beasts saw this, their eyes lit up. As if they had seen delicious food, they immediately pounced on the white-robed old man. Please don't do this." Seeing this, the red-clothed old man and the others panicked and hurriedly shouted. However, the inner demons was indifferent. His eyes were cold. "No!" the red-clothed old man roared. However, it was useless. He watched helplessly as the old man in white was torn to shreds and eaten alive by the autarch beasts. Not even a fingernail was left. Why did you do this to him?" The 8 of them watched this scene. Their old faces were filled with pain and despair. "Who's next?" The inner demons retracted his gaze and glanced at the 8 of them. His blood-red eyes were like the eyes of a beast. It made them tremble. The 8 of them felt cold all over. Even if they were used to seeing blood and killing, they could not help but feel panic at this moment. This method of torture was too terrifying and cruel. It was simply not something a human could do. "You! The inner demon suddenly raised his hand and pointed at an old man in green. Don't! The old man in green trembled both physically and mentally. He was terrified. The inner demons grabbed the bleeding Xueqi and walked in front of the old man in green. He grinned and said, "It's not up to you to decide whether you want it or not." "Don't. I'll confess. I'll tell you everything." The old man in green was scared out of his wits. He shouted in horror. "Old Six, don't say," the red-clothed old man shouted. "You're courting death." Killing intent flashed in the eyes of the inner demons. He turned around and landed in front of the red-clothed old man. Xueqi waved. With a crack, the red-clothed old man's head was removed on the spot. Blood spurted out from the bowl-sized wound. Then, the corpse fell down. "This is also for you." The inner demons lowered his head and looked at the emperor beasts and laughed. Roar! The emperor beasts immediately swarmed forward. That bloody scene made the old man in green and the others scared out of their wits. Their faces were pale. "Big brother!" The old man in green and the others roared in grief. Their hearts were shattered. "Stupid old thing." The inner demons smiled disdainfully. He turned around and returned to the old man in green. He smiled and said, "Speak." The old man in green quivered and retracted his gaze. He looked at the inner demons and swallowed his saliva. He said, "Your mother and the people of the village are now on another island." "Another island?" The inner demons frowned and asked, "How far is it from here?" "Very far. Even a 9-star war emperor would need to fly for half a month to get there." The old man in green said. Seeing the inner demons' gaze turn cold, he hurriedly said, "But I have the coordinates." "Give me the coordinates," the inner demons said. The old man in green nodded and said, "Yes, but you have to promise to let us go." The inner demon's eyes shone with a fierce light. He turned around and landed in front of the old man in black. Then, he directly cut off the old man's neck. Next, the old man's body was also eaten alive by the emperor beasts. Second brother. The remaining people were all desperate to the extreme. The inner demons turned to look at the old man in green. His eyes were as cold as a blade. He said, "If you continue to negotiate with me, you will end up like them." The old man in green trembled and hurriedly said, Okay, I'll give you the coordinates." After saying that, the old man in green really gave the inner demons a coordinate. However, the inner demons did not really believe him. He lowered his head and pondered. "I'm not lying to you. You have to believe me," the old man in green called out anxiously. The inner demons glanced at him. With a thought, the ghost snake emperor appeared out of thin air. "Go to that island and take a look. If there's a situation, leave immediately," the inner demons instructed. "No problem." Chapter 1269. The spirit serpent emperor could change the color of its skin and become one with nature. As long as it did not show itself, it would be difficult to be discovered. Therefore, it was undoubtedly the safest thing to let it explore the island. "If the spirit serpent emperor comes back and tells me that you lied to me, you will end up worse than those old men." The inner demons looked away and said to the elder in green, "The spirit serpent emperor." The green-robed old man's body trembled slightly, and a hint of panic flashed through his old eyes. "Looks like there's something fishy going on," the inner demons muttered. Although the fear in the elder's eyes disappeared quickly, the inner demons still caught it clearly. Time passed quietly. About 500 to 600 breaths later. Swoosh! Suddenly, a bloody figure appeared beside the inner demons. It was the spirit serpent emperor. What happened? The inner demons raised his eyebrows. The spirit serpent emperor was injured. The spirit serpent emperor let out a breath and said in a low voice, "The island is very dangerous." "What danger?" The inner demon's eyes darkened as he asked. As he finished speaking, he glanced at the elder in green. The elder in green immediately panicked. "There are 10 9-star combat emperors hiding on the island," the spirit serpent emperor said. The inner demon's eyes narrowed. If he did not have the foresight to send the spirit serpent emperor to explore the island, he would have entered the island unprepared. He would have been in deep trouble. The inner demon said, "So your injuries were caused by them?" "Yes. At that time, after looking for your mother, I was about to come back and tell you. However, when I was leaving, I accidentally made some noise and they heard me. Fortunately, I was quick-witted and managed to hide in time. Otherwise, this emperor would definitely have died there. The spirit serpent emperor said. Swoosh. The inner demons turned his head and looked at the elder in green. Why didn't you tell me that there were 9-star combat emperors guarding the island? I forgot. The elder in green panicked. The inner demons laughed. How can you forget such an important thing? Do you take me for a fool? No. The green-clothed old man waved his hand repeatedly. If I'm not wrong, you probably saw that there was no way out, so you might as well tell me where my mother is and lure me to that island. Because you know that my mother is very important to me. I will go there immediately after I find out. This way, I won't have any defense. As for the 10 people hiding on the island, they can kill me effortlessly, right? The inner demon sneered. That's right. That's what I think. It's a pity that you're too cautious. To think that you would send a subordinate to scout out the situation first. Furthermore, it was the spirit serpent emperor. The green-clothed old man laughed sinisterly. Since he had already been exposed, there was nothing to argue about. The inner demon sneered. You think you can trick me with this little trick? You're underestimating me. Yes, I underestimated you. I thought that after knowing your mother's whereabouts, you would rush over regardless of everything. I didn't expect you to be so calm. Now that things have come to this, I don't want to say anything more. If you want to kill me or torture me, do as you please. The green-clothed old man looked at him expressionlessly. You have a backbone. I'll fulfill your wish. The inner demon sneered, killing intent surging from his blood-red eyes. Wait. The spirit serpent emperor hurriedly stopped the inner demons. What's wrong? The inner demons asked. There's still something I haven't figured out. The spirit serpent emperor said in a deep voice. What is it? The inner demons frowned. The spirit serpent emperor said, when I was looking for your mother, I accidentally found an ice cellar. There was an ice sculpture inside. Ice sculpture? The inner demons was stunned. At the same time, hearing the words ice sculpture, the green-clothed old man and the others panicked even more. Yes, there was a black-haired old man sealed inside the ice sculpture. Although I couldn't sense his aura, he gave me a very dangerous feeling. The spirit serpent emperor said. This? The inner demons was stunned and said in shock. Could it be that he sealed himself? Yes, he sealed himself. The spirit serpent emperor said word by word. The inner demons' heart trembled. Sealing oneself was impossible for the combat emperors and creatures below them. One must at least have the cultivation base of a pseudo-god. This was the most basic condition. In other words, there was a pseudo-god hiding on that island. The inner demons turned to look at the green-clothed old man and the others and said, Who is the person inside the ice sculpture? The few of them kept their mouths shut. You don't want to say? It's okay, I will find out. Now I finally understand why you would rather die than tell me the whereabouts of my mother. So it's because there is a pseudo-god who sealed himself there. This time, it's really a big gain. Ha. When I get him, I think that state preceptor will definitely kneel down and beg me. The inner demons laughed. Whether it was a human or a beast, whether it was a pseudo-god or a real combat god, as long as he was in a self-sealing state, there was no threat. Moreover, without enough blood, he couldn't wake up from the self-sealing state. In other words, before he woke up, he was an ice sculpture without any combat power. You dare. The green-clothed old man looked at him coldly. Old man, are you joking? Is there anything in this world that our boss Qin doesn't dare to do? At this moment, Lei Bao, Seahorse, and Seal broke through the air, their eyes full of ridicule. Shwa! Very soon. They landed in front of the inner demons. Lei Bao asked curiously, but then again, what are you talking about? It seems very interesting. We found a pseudo-god who sealed himself. The inner demons said. What? Lei Bao's eyes widened. They actually found a pseudo-god? This was too shocking. Seahorse suddenly said, Boss Qin, can I eat him? Eat. Lei Bao was shocked and turned to look at Seahorse. Are you an idiot? A pseudo-god. Can you even eat it? You're the idiot. Don't you know that a self-sealing pseudo-god has no strength at all? Seahorse rolled his eyes. That's right, that's equivalent to a delicious cake placed there for us to taste. Seal followed. There's such a thing? Lei Bao was surprised. It used to live in the ancient tower, so it didn't know anything about these things. Of course. Seahorse nodded and said in disdain, "Now tell me, who's the idiot?" Lei Bao ignored it and rolled his eyes. Looking at these three guys, the inner demons rubbed its forehead helplessly. It wasn't enough to have a group of top-notch creatures around them. Now there were a few foodies. It really made them helpless. Phew. The inner demons exhaled and looked at the three beasts, asking, "Why are you guys back?" Is there a need to ask? Since we're back, it means that everything is almost settled. Lei Bao secretly looked down on them, then said with a flattering smile, "Boss, where's that self-sealing pseudo-god now?" The inner demons frowned and said, "You're not really going to eat him, are you?" When dealing with an enemy, especially the descendant of that old bastard state teacher, we have to drink his blood and eat his flesh to vent the hatred in our hearts. Lei Bao was filled with righteous indignation and roared with hatred. Then, he looked at Seahorse and Seal and said, "Second brother, third brother, right?" "Yes, yes, yes." The two beasts nodded. They had eaten everything, except the flesh of a pseudo-god, which was a great tonic. The inner demons couldn't help but feel helpless. As for the green-clothed old man and the other five, their hearts were palpitating as they listened. The green-clothed old man was also regretting it. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have given the coordinates of the island to Qin Fei Yang even if he had to die. Wasn't that inviting wolves into the house? Moreover, it was a pack of hungry wolves. Lei Bao looked at the six of them, then looked at the inner demons and said, "Boss Qin, why don't we keep these people alive?" "Keep them alive for what?" The inner demons was puzzled. "They're that old bastard's sons. We can use them to threaten that old bastard. If we can't threaten him, then we'll kill them in front of that old bastard." Seeing his own sons killed, even if that old bastard doesn't care, he'll definitely go crazy with anger. Lei Bao smiled evilly. The inner demons was stunned, then grinned and said, "You don't say, your suggestion is really good." "Of course. When it comes to torture, if I say I'm second, no one would dare to say they're first." Lei Bao said proudly. "Fuck. So arrogant. Looks like I'll have to have a good fight with it sometime." Inside the ancient castle, Fatso and Wolf King heard this and immediately expressed their dissatisfaction. Outside, the inner demons thought for a while, then looked up at Lei Bao and nodded. "Okay, we'll do as you say." Whoosh. With that, he waved his hand and sent the green-robed elder and the other five to the ancient castle. The seahorse said excitedly, "Are we going to find that fake god who sealed himself next?" Cough, cough. The seal coughed dryly and said, "Be more polite. You're drooling." "Am I?" The seahorse was stunned. It stuck out its tongue and licked its mouth. There was indeed drooling. This was awkward. "You guys recuperate first. There might be a fierce battle later," the inner demon said with a black face, feeling very helpless. "Didn't they say that birds of a feather flock together? Why is it that he and I are such serious people, but the ones we subdued are the best of the best?" He really couldn't figure it out. Whoosh. Soon, Wang Yongfeng and Wang Yishan returned. They were covered in blood and full of murderous aura. Wang Yongfeng bowed and said, "Young master, the 9-star combat emperors here have been wiped out, but we also lost some 9-star emperor beasts." "How many did you lose?" The inner demons frowned. Wang Yongfeng said, "It hasn't been counted yet. There are probably more than a dozen of them." The inner demons was silent for a while and said, "If there is killing, there will be death. This is unavoidable." Wang Yongfeng nodded. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He looked up at the inner demons and said, "By the way, young master, I think it's unrealistic for you to block the news here." "What do you mean?" The inner demons looked at him suspiciously. Wang Yongfeng said, "There are more than 1 million people here. We can't take care of all of them. Maybe someone has already sent a message to the state preceptor, so we have to find the matriarch as soon as possible." "You're worrying too much. Why would the state preceptor establish a contract with ordinary people? I guess the only people who have established a contract with him are his 10 sons." The inner demons sneered. Wang Yongfeng was stunned. He thought for a while and said, "That makes sense. If someone really sent him a message, he would have come here long ago. But just in case, it's best to find the matriarch as soon as possible." I've already found Mother. The inner demons said. Where is she? Wang Yongfeng asked in surprise. The inner demons said, on another island. I'll take you there later. Recuperate first. Yes. The two responded respectfully. They each took out a healing pill and put it into their mouths. Finally, a smile appeared on their faces. They were happy for Qin Feiyang and the inner demons. After working so hard for so long, they finally found her. Chapter 1270. Not long after, the other 16 nine-star combat emperors returned one after another. They were all covered in blood and filled with murderous intent. Greetings, young master. The group of people landed in front of the inner demons and bowed. How did it go? The inner demons asked. An old woman said, we've taken care of all the combat emperors. The rest of the combat saints and those below the combat saint level are still being hunted down. Very good. The inner demons nodded. As long as they took care of all the combat emperors, even if the others were lucky enough to escape, they would not be able to do anything. But, the old woman said again, but she was hesitant. But what? The inner demons frowned. I found that some people took advantage of the chaos to open a portal and escape. As the old woman spoke, she knelt on one knee on the ground and said, this is our negligence. Please punish us, young master. The inner demons raised his eyebrows and said, how strong are the people who escaped? The other 15 people also knelt in the void, looking extremely nervous. Not very strong. The strongest is only a combat saint. As for the combat emperors, we kept a close eye on them, so they didn't have a chance to escape. The old woman said, that's fine. Moreover, in such a chaotic situation, it's normal for a few fish to escape. Get up. The inner demons waved his hand and said, thank you, young master, for not punishing us. The old woman and the others bowed and thanked him. However, we can't let them escape just like that. They must still be in the reincarnation ocean. Elder Wang Yishan. The inner demon's eyes flashed with killing intent as he turned to look at Wang Yongfeng. Yes, young master. Wang Yongfeng and the other two bowed and said. The inner demon said, take the seahorse and the seal immediately and hunt down the remaining survivors. Try to kill all of them. Yes. Wang Yongfeng and the seal nodded. Boss Qin, you can just send a few people for such a small matter. Why do you have to make us go? Yes, we are all people who do great things. This is too much of a waste of our talents. The seahorse and the other two beasts were anxious. They were still thinking about the self-sealing false god. You guys are familiar with the Sea of Reincarnation. With you guys around, we can save a lot of time. As for using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, I really can't tell what you're capable of. If you're not convinced, then prove it to me. The inner demons snorted. The two beasts felt very wronged, but they didn't dare to talk back. This person was ruthless and had so many experts by his side. He wouldn't care about the two of them at all. If they angered him, he would probably kill them without a second thought. The inner demons waved their hands and said, go! Yes. Wang Yongfeng nodded and turned into a stream of light, quickly disappearing into the horizon. The seahorse and seahorse exchanged a glance before following along in a resigned manner. The inner demons retracted their gaze and looked up at the sky. A cold light flashed in their eyes as they said, the rest of you, follow me to save my mother and the villagers. The spirit serpent emperor added, we have to end this quickly. We can't give them a chance to awaken that fake god. False god? The old woman and the others were shocked. The inner demons sneered. That fake god is in a self-sealing state. There's no need to worry about him. Even so, the old woman and the others were still unable to calm down the raging waves in their hearts. There was a fake god among the descendants of the Grand Tutor? What a shocking piece of news. The inner demons glanced at the 16 of them before turning to the Spirit Serpent Emperor. Lead the way. The Spirit Serpent Emperor immediately opened the portal. The inner demon smiled sinisterly and was the first to step into the portal. The Spirit Serpent Emperor and Lei Bao followed closely behind. The old woman and the others looked at each other, took a deep breath, and followed in. In the depths of the Sea of Reincarnation, there was a long island. The island was huge and lush with vegetation. Looking down from the sky, it looked like a lone boat floating on the sea. In the middle of the island, there was a lake that was a few hundred feet wide. The lake water was clear and rippled. Around the lake, there were 10 black-robed elders sitting cross-legged on the green stones beside the lake. They had their eyes closed and were resting. Their auras were extraordinary. This place was extremely quiet. The beasts and sea beasts on the island also regarded this place as a forbidden area and did not dare to come close. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying murderous aura descended from the sky above the lake and broke the silence. Who is it? The 10 black-robed elders immediately shouted and looked up at the sky. Their eyes were as sharp as blades. Whoosh! In the next moment, a blood-red figure appeared in the sky. He is Qin Feiyang. When the 10 of them saw the newcomer's face, their expressions changed. The inner demons glanced at the 10 of them and sneered. There are indeed 10 9-star combat emperors. Before he finished speaking, Lei Bao, the spirit serpent emperor, the old woman, and the others appeared behind him. So many 9-star combat emperors? The 10 of them stood up and their faces were filled with shock. Kill them! The spirit serpent emperor shouted. If the fake god was awakened, they would be in deep trouble. One of the black-robed elders shouted, Old He, inform the patriarch and the ancestral patriarch that Qin Feiyang is here. The rest of you, follow me to hold them back. Patriarch? The inner demon sneered and said, Your patriarch has died in my hands. As for the national master, I'm afraid he can't leave now. What? The 10 of them turned pale. The inner demon said, I have good news to tell you. Your ancestral patriarch and the others are either dead or injured. That's impossible. The 10 ancestral patriarchs have divine skills and have reached the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. How can you kill them with your strength? The 10 of them shouted angrily. Nothing is impossible in front of me, Qin Feiyang. Anyway, today is your doomsday. After the inner demons finished speaking, his aura suddenly exploded. Roar! In the next moment, along with a dragon's roar, the purple-gold dragon's soul roared out. The terrifying dragon's aura covered the sky and shook the earth. What a powerful aura! It's a 9-star combat emperor. The 10 of them were shocked. One of the elders shouted, 2 of you, go and wake the ancestral patriarch. Ancestral patriarch? The inner demon squinted his eyes and opened the Emperor Divine prison. The 10 of them were immediately imprisoned in the void. Break! The 10 of them shouted angrily and their aura burst out without holding back. Even so, they could not break the imprisonment of the Emperor Divine prison. What a terrifying fighting soul! The Emperor Divine prison is also the Emperor Divine prison. However, compared to this kid's Emperor Divine prison, it's like heaven and earth. The 10 of them were shocked. Of course, they knew about Qin Feiyang's achievements. However, they did not expect him to grow so quickly. Thinking back, how many years had it been since Qin Feiyang was expelled from the imperial capital? He had already reached such a high level. Even they were unable to catch up to him. The current Qin Feiyang was strong enough to stir up the universe and control the general trend. Perhaps even the emperor would be wary of him. Everyone, go all out and kill him. Boom! An even more powerful aura burst out from the 10 of them. Among these auras, there was a wisp of divine power. Following closely, a black moon rose in front of the 10 of them. Dark light shrouded all directions and the terrifying divine power shook the sky. Why is it the same divine art again? Could it be that this is a kind of inherited divine art? The inner demons frowned. The patriarch, the 10 patriarchs, and these 10 of them had all mastered the same divine art. This was somewhat inconceivable. This was because the divine art was unique and could only be understood. It could not be explained. In other words, the same divine art could not be cultivated by more than one person at the same time. However, there were exceptions. This exception was the inheritance. For example, in the land of inheritance of the main tower, the predecessors had left behind the inheritance. If the descendants had the opportunity, they could inherit it. This meant that, on this island, or perhaps on the previous island, there was a land of inheritance hidden. Boom! Just as the inner demons was deep in thought, the 10 black moons expanded in the wind and the divine power became more and more terrifying. They actually shattered the Emperor Divine prison. A bunch of ants, how dare you challenge me? You really don't know what death is. The inner demons came back to his senses, and his eyes instantly turned cold. Boom! He slammed his palm in the air, and a golden light burst out, giving them a taste of their own medicine. The 10 black moons immediately turned in the air and charged toward the 10 black-robed elders like lightning. No! The 10 of them were stunned and roared angrily. Boom! The 10 black moons arrived in an instant and exploded one after another. At this place, a fierce wind suddenly howled, and a terrifying and destructive air wave rushed out in all directions. The 10 of them were immediately drowned by the air wave. Painful and desperate screams resounded through the sky. When everything calmed down, the lake below had already disappeared and was replaced by a pile of ruins. As for the 10 black-clothed old men, they had already disappeared without a trace, leaving not the slightest trace behind. However, they did not escape. Their corpses were not left behind. Amazing! Lei Bao, the old woman, and the others were all in awe. They thought that they would need to make a move to get rid of the 10 black-robed elders, but they never expected that Qin Fei Yong would use only one move to kill them. How heaven-defying such strength was. What is this? Let me tell you, with Boss Qin's current strength, he can kill all the descendants of the Grand Tutor alone. The reason why I asked you to make a move is purely to give you a chance to gain experience. Of course, it is also a chance for you to show off. The Spirit Serpent Emperor sneered. Lei Bao, the old woman, and the others looked at each other and smiled, but their smiles were somewhat bitter. The Spirit Serpent Emperor's words were like a blow to the head. No matter how strong they were still inferior to Qin Fei Yong. The inner demons looked down, and the murderous intent in his eyes gradually disappeared. He asked, "Where is my mother?" "She is imprisoned underground. The entrance was originally at the bottom of the lake, but now..." The Spirit Serpent Emperor looked down at the ground with a troubled expression. "Go find her," the inner demons said. The Spirit Serpent Emperor, Lei Bao, and the old woman immediately flew down and searched carefully. At this moment, the consciousness of Qin Fei Yong's original body also appeared beside the inner demons, and there was an indescribable excitement between his brows. The inner demon's eyes flashed and suddenly turned to Qin Fei Yong and asked, "Original body, do you think Mother will hate me when she sees me later?" Chapter 1271. Because I'm the inner demons. Don't all of you hate inner demons as if they were your mortal enemies? The inner demons said. Qin Fei Yong shook his head and smiled. Don't think too much. Mother is not the kind of person you said. Whether it's me or you, we are all her children. Is that really the case? The inner demons murmured, a little expectant and a little nervous. Qin Fei Yong couldn't help but laugh. It was the first time he saw the arrogant inner demons so anxious. No. This was the second time. The first time was when he faced Uncle Yuan. It seemed that this guy had completely changed. Young master, found it. After waiting for a while, the old woman's voice suddenly sounded from below. Qin Fei Yong and the inner demons were refreshed and immediately landed beside the old woman. Why are there two young masters? The old woman was shocked. The other 15 people and Lei Bao also looked at Qin Fei Yong and the inner demons in surprise. Don't be surprised. The Spirit Snake Emperor pursed its mouth and slammed its huge tail on the ground in front of it. Immediately, dust flew. A 3-meter-wide dark passage appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Qin Fei Yong and the inner demons immediately jumped in. The dark passage was dark and damp. Because of the previous battle, many places had collapsed, but this didn't affect everyone. The Spirit Snake Emperor walked in front, leading the way and opening the way. Soon, Qin Fei Yong found that this dark passage was in the shape of a spiral, leading to the depths of the sea. About a few hundred breaths passed. An ancient stone door appeared in front of them. It's here, the Spirit Snake Emperor said. A group of people quickly ran to the stone door. The stone door was closed, 3 feet high and 5 meters wide, exuding a heavy aura. The inner demons asked, "How do we open it?" There's a mechanism. The Spirit Snake Emperor flew to the top of the stone door, raised its tail and pressed it against the wall. Crack! That place suddenly caved in. The stone door also opened. Ordinary mechanisms are set up on the 2 sides of the door. But this mechanism is set up on the top. At that time, I found it for a long time. The Spirit Snake Emperor said proudly. Amazing. Qin Fei Yong generously gave a thumbs up to satisfy this guy's vanity. The stone door slowly opened. Everyone stared at the stone door. Their eyes were full of expectations. Finally, the stone door opened a crack could allow one person. Qin Feiyong and the inner demon impatiently rushed in. What entered their eyes was a dark corridor that was at least a few thousand meters long CTS. However, these cells were not made of stone. Instead, they were made of iron pillars as thick as an adult's arm. There were more than 10 cells in the deepest part of the city. There were more than 1,000 people in total. However, their hands and feet were shackled with black shackles. At this moment, some of them were silent, resting with their eyes closed. Some were staring at the wall with dull eyes. There were also some people who spoke softly. However, without exception, their faces were filled with bitterness and despair. Will the young lord come to save us? In one of the cells, an old man in black opened his eyes and asked everyone. Don't think about it. This place is so secretive. Even if the young lord wants to save us, he can't find us. Yes. If the image crystal wasn't destroyed, we could still send a message to the young lord for help. But now. Sigh. Speaking of this, everyone was silent. They looked extremely helpless. The black-clothed old man also sighed and slowly closed his eyes. But suddenly, he seemed to have noticed something and turned to look at the long corridor. Immediately, he saw a group of people walking quickly towards him from the other end of the corridor. As for the two people in the lead, who else could they be but the young lords? The young lord is here? The old man in black was stunned. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief and looked again. Immediately, he suddenly got up and shouted, Look, it's the young lord. What? Young lord? Hearing the old man in black's words, the people in the cells were stunned. They quickly got up and followed the old man's gaze to the corridor. It's really the young lord, and Lei Bao. Young lord? The young lord didn't give up on us. We are saved. More than 1,000 people suddenly howled. Some were even crying tears of joy. At the same time, hearing everyone's howls, Qin Feiyong and the inner demons looked at each other. They were also wild with joy and quickly flew over. When they saw the familiar faces, their hearts couldn't help but ache. Greetings, young lord. More than 1,000 people knelt on the ground and shouted loudly. Get up quickly. Qin Feiyong hurriedly said. Everyone slowly got up and looked at Qin Feiyong's group. Some laughed, some cried. Young lord, it's been 3 days since we last met. You're finally here. The old man in black walked to the iron bars and grabbed Qin Feiyong's hand. Tears flowed down his face. A simple sentence was full of bitterness. I'm sorry. If I could have calmed down and seen through the Imperial Preceptor's plan, you wouldn't have been in prison. It's my fault. I've made you suffer so much. Qin Feiyong firmly held the old man in black's hand and looked at everyone. It's okay. Young lord, don't blame yourself. Because we're all willing. Even if we die in the end, we won't have a word of complaint. The old man in black said. Yes. A gentleman will die for his bosom friend. As long as I can help the young lord, it doesn't matter even if I die. Everyone laughed. A gentleman will die for his bosom friend, Qin Feiyong murmured. He didn't expect everyone to be so loyal to him. He was very touched. Suddenly, he let go of the old man in black's hand and bowed to everyone. Thank you for trusting me so much. I, Qin Feiyong, hereby swear that no matter what happens in the future, I'll stand by everyone. We'll share weal and woe together. Young lord, you can't do that. You're the master, and we're the servants. We can't accept your bow. The old man in black hurriedly said. No. I'm not the master, and you're not the servants. We're friends, family. This, whether it's in the past or in the future, will not change. Qin Feiyong said solemnly. Young lord, why would you fear death? The old man in black laughed. Everyone laughed as well. It was really lucky to meet such a young lord. The inner demons looked at this scene and sighed. The ancient said, treat people with sincerity and make them submit. This was the best way to subdue people. Compared to the original body, he felt ashamed. He turned to look at the spirit serpent emperor and asked, Where's mother? Over there. The spirit serpent emperor looked at the end of the long corridor ahead. The inner demons and Qin Feiyong turned to look and saw a stone door at the end of the long corridor. The stone door was closed. But above the stone door, there was a narrow window for people to see the situation inside. The inner demons immediately ran over. Open the prison and let everyone out. Qin Feiyong turned around and said something to the old woman and the others. Then, he quickly ran over. The two of them stood in front of the door and looked inside through the window. This prison was sealed off. The space inside was also very large, about 200 to 300 feet. And in the middle of the prison, a woman in white sat cross-legged on a shabby futon. Her face was haggard, and her hair was messy. Her hands and feet were also shackled. At this moment, the woman was also looking at Qin Feiyong and the old man. Although there was a stone door between them, it could not block the woman's motherly radiance, nor could it block Qin Feiyong's longing for his mother. Get out of the way! Suddenly, Qin Feiyong pushed the inner demons away, took out the Chang Shui, and waved his hand at the stone door. After a few slashes, accompanied by a loud crack, the stone door fell to the ground with a loud bang. Qin Feiyong immediately ran into the prison. The woman also slowly got up, with a loving smile on her face. Qin Feiyong stopped in front of the woman, looked at her haggard face, and knelt on the ground with a plop, saying, "Mother, I'm sorry, your son is late." The woman was slightly stunned, and quickly bent down to help Qin Feiyong up. She looked deeply at Qin Feiyong's face, and after a long time, she sighed and said, "Tian'er, the person who should apologize is actually your mother." "Mother?" Qin Feiyong looked at the woman in a daze. The woman slowly raised her arm and gently caressed Qin Feiyong's face. She softly said, "All these years, not only have I not fulfilled my responsibility as a mother, I've also always been a burden to you, causing you to worry, be anxious, and run around everywhere." No. It's not like that. Your son has never thought that mother is dragging your son down. Besides, it's your son's duty to run around for your mother. Your son has no regrets. Qin Feiyong quickly shook his head. What a silly child. Looking at Qin Feiyong's anxious look, the woman could not help shaking her head and laughing. Haha. Qin Feiyong rubbed his head, giggling. You're an adult, but you still show such a silly smile. Aren't you afraid that your subordinates will laugh at you? Seeing this, the woman could not help shaking her head and teasing. Qin Feiyong laughed and said, "In front of mother, a son will always be a child. If they want to laugh, let them laugh. You'll never grow up." The woman knocked on Qin Feiyong's forehead, but her face was full of doting. Then she looked up at the inner demons hiding outside the door. Qin Feiyong finally remembered the inner demons. When he turned his head and saw the inner demons' bashful and uneasy look, he could not help laughing and said, "Come in, why are you hiding there? Are you afraid that mother will eat you?" The inner demons glared at Qin Feiyong angrily, and then looked up at the woman. They looked even more reserved than when they saw Uncle Yuan. The woman smiled and said, "Come here." The inner demons looked at Qin Feiyong for help. "I'm also puzzled. Look at you, no matter who you see, you're always lawless and insufferably arrogant. Why do you become like a little woman when you see mother? Can't you be more mature?" Chapter 1272. Little girl. The inner demons raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "How dare you talk about me like that? Aren't you usually arrogant and domineering in front of others? Now you're like a little lamb in front of mother." Qin Feiyong's face darkened. He turned to stare at the inner demons angrily and said, "You have to make yourself clear. When have I ever been arrogant and domineering? Don't ruin my good image in mother's heart." "You have a good image? I'm a good student." The inner demons looked at him with disdain. Qin Feiyong's veins were bulging. He said angrily, "Does it feel good to go against me?" "You're right. It really does feel good." The inner demons smiled mockingly. His face was full of provocation. "You're good." Qin Feiyong snorted and walked to his mother. "Mother, don't listen to his nonsense. Your son has always been honest and well-behaved." Tisk! The inner demons raised his middle finger and walked to the woman. He bowed and said, "Greetings, mother." After messing around with Qin Feiyong, the tension in his heart disappeared. Qin Feiyong also had a smile on his face. He had never been a person who liked to mess around. He did this to ease the atmosphere and help the inner demons relax. The woman stepped forward and held the inner demon's hand. She smiled and said, "Don't be so formal. Is this the love of a mother?" The inner demons murmured. The warmth from the woman's hand made him feel a little intoxicated. The woman reached out and hugged the two of them. Her face was full of love. She smiled and said, "You're both my good children. Mother is proud of you." Qin Feiyong was full of smiles. On the other hand, Inner Demon was completely engrossed. Was this the embrace of a mother? It was so warm. As the inner demons, he had never felt such warmth, let alone the great love of a mother. He couldn't help but be infatuated. Especially when the woman said that they were both her good children. His heart melted completely. "Mother," the inner demons murmured in a low voice. They couldn't help but hug their mother tightly, as if they were afraid that she would disappear in the next moment. The three of them hugged each other tightly, revealing their true feelings. Outside the door, the Phantom Serpent Emperor and Lei Bao couldn't bear to interrupt them. Not long after, the old woman and the others also rescued everyone. The old woman walked out of the cell and stood beside the Phantom Serpent Emperor. She glanced at the mother and children and prepared to report to Qin Feiyong. "Don't disturb them. It wasn't easy for them to reunite. Let them be alone for a while." The Spirit Serpent Emperor transmitted his voice. "All right." The old woman nodded. Then, she turned around and gestured for everyone to keep quiet. Everyone understood tacitly and stood silently in the corridor and the prison cells. For a time, the prison fell into a dead silence. "All right. Everyone is waiting outside. Don't let them wait too long." A moment later, the woman glanced at the old woman and the others. She patted Qin Feiyong's back and said with a smile, Qin Feiyong and the other two nodded and reluctantly left their mother's arms. Then, the two looked at the iron shackles on their mother's hands and feet. Their eyes flashed coldly. "I won't let that old man, the Imperial Preceptor, have it easy." Qin Feiyong snorted and took out the Chong Shui. With a clang, the iron shackles immediately broke. These iron shackles were made of gravity divine iron and could imprison the cultivation of living beings. In other words, once bound by these iron shackles, no matter how strong one's cultivation was, they would become ordinary people and be at the mercy of others. The inner demons glanced at Qin Feiyong, then looked up at the woman and said with a smile, "Mother, let's go out." "All right." The woman nodded. Qin Feiyong and the inner demons supported their mother on both sides and walked out of the cell. "Greetings, mistress." The old woman and the others immediately knelt on one knee and greeted respectfully. The woman glanced at them one by one. Her face was filled with relief. She smiled and said, "No need to be so polite." "Thank you, mistress." Everyone stood up and looked at the woman curiously. The woman had a dignified demeanor and a smile on her face. She appeared very kind. The Spirit Snake Emperor leaned over to Qin Feiyong's ear and whispered, "It's time to take care of business." Qin Feiyong narrowed his eyes slightly. The business that the Spirit Snake Emperor was talking about was undoubtedly the self-sealing false god. Qin Feiyong turned to look at the woman and asked, "Mother, do you know of a self-sealing false god here?" "False god?" The woman was shocked and shook her head. "I don't know, where is it?" "Lead the way." Qin Feiyong looked at the Spirit Snake Emperor and said, "All right." The Spirit Snake Emperor nodded and turned to fly out of the prison. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "Mother, please." The woman frowned and quickly followed. A false god was not a small matter and had to be treated with caution. But suddenly, Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed and said, "Mother, wait." "What's wrong?" The woman stopped and turned to look at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. The inner demons were also puzzled. Qin Feiyong took out a facial restoration pill from his bosom and handed it to the woman. The woman looked at the face-restoring pill and looked at Qin Feiyong in confusion. The inner demons looked at the woman's expression and angrily looked at Qin Feiyong, saying, "Bastard, what are you doing? Don't tell me that even Mother doesn't believe you?" Qin Feiyong glanced at him and said to the woman, "The situation forced me. I hope Mother can forgive me." "Mother understands." The woman smiled, took the face-restoring pill, and put it in her mouth without hesitation. A moment later, the woman's appearance did not change at all. Qin Feiyong sighed in relief. At a time like this, he was afraid that an accident would happen. Because in the current situation, the most important thing was to let his guard down. Otherwise, one wrong step and the whole game would be lost. Shua! Qin Feiyong flashed again and entered the castle. He looked at Dan Wangkai and said, "Are there any more face-restoring pills?" "Yes. Last time when you asked me to refine, I refined a lot." Dan Wangkai took out a Qianquan bag. There were thousands of face-restoring pills in it. Qin Feiyong grabbed the Qianquan bag and left the castle. He looked at the old woman and said, "There are face-restoring pills inside. Verify their identities. If there are any abnormalities, kill them without mercy." "Yes." The old woman took the Qianquan bag and respectfully replied. Qin Feiyong looked at his mother and said with a smile, "Let's go." The woman nodded and walked outside. The inner demons walked to Qin Feiyong and asked secretly, "Aren't you being too cautious?" "In such a situation, I have to be cautious." Qin Feiyong sighed. The inner demons fell silent. Although he was a little dissatisfied with Qin Feiyong's actions, Qin Feiyong's concerns were understandable. The woman turned to look at the two of them. Her eyes were full of praise. She asked, "Does the Imperial Advisor know that you're here?" The inner demon sneered. "He knows that we've come to the Sea of Reincarnation, but he doesn't know that we've found his lair. He also doesn't know that his descendants have been slaughtered by us." "Slaughtered?" The woman's eyes trembled. She said, "Isn't this a little too cruel?" "Mother, can't you see the current situation clearly? The Imperial Advisor wants to usurp the throne. Do you know where they came from?" Qin Feiyong pointed at the old woman and the others. The woman shook her head. Qin Feiyong said, "They're the death warriors trained by the Imperial Advisor. Fortunately, we found them in advance and rescued them." "Rescued?" The woman was puzzled. Qin Feiyong said, "It's a long story. I'll tell you after we leave." "Okay." The woman nodded. Boom. At this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from one of the cells. Qin Feiyong and the inner demons raised their eyebrows. They turned to look and saw a burly man rush out of the crowd. He was full of killing intent. "There's a spy." Qin Feiyong's eyes turned cold. He shouted, "Cripple him." Whoosh. The power of thunder rumbled. Lei Bao was like a ghost. He rushed into the cell like lightning and directly shattered the burly man's sea of qi. "Ah!" The burly man screamed and slammed into the wall behind him. "Qin Feiyong, don't be too happy. One day, you'll die in the hands of the old ancestor. The great Qin Empire will also change its name." The burly man stared at Qin Feiyong with hatred and roared. "Change its name?" Qin Feiyong and the inner demons looked at each other. Their eyes were full of mockery. "Lei Bao, it's up to you." Qin Feiyong said coldly. Then he, Heart Demon, and his mother followed behind the Spirit Serpent Emperor and continued to walk outside. When they walked out of the cell, the Spirit Serpent Emperor stopped. "Where is it?" Qin Feiyong looked at the secret passage in front of them and frowned. "It's here." The Spirit Serpent Emperor looked at the stone wall to the left of the cell. Qin Feiyong and the inner demons looked at the stone wall. The stone wall was one piece. Other than an oil lamp hanging on it, they couldn't find anything else. "Watch me." The Spirit Serpent Emperor chuckled. It leaped into the air and pushed the oil lamp lightly. The oil lamp could move. Boom. Following the movement of the oil lamp, a crack appeared on the stone wall that was originally one piece. Then, the wall slowly opened. A bone-piercing chill suddenly surged out. "You were able to find such hidden doors and mechanisms?" The inner demons looked at the Spirit Serpent Emperor in surprise. The Spirit Serpent Emperor smiled proudly and said, "Don't you know who I am?" "Then how did you find it?" The inner demons frowned. "It's a secret." The Spirit Serpent Emperor smiled mysteriously. "Actually, it's not a secret. Other than the fact that the Spirit Serpent Emperor has no aura and can change the color of its skin, it's also very sensitive to the temperature of its surroundings. As for this secret door, although it can isolate the cold current inside, it can still sense it with its own special ability. As long as it finds something strange here, it won't be difficult to find the secret door and mechanism." The woman smiled. "I see." The inner demons was enlightened. The Spirit Serpent Emperor's pupils shrunk. It said in admiration, "Mistress is indeed knowledgeable." The woman shook her head and smiled. She then turned to look at the secret door. The secret door was already halfway open. The chill that surged out was even more terrifying. A layer of frost formed on the brows and hair of the three. There was indeed an ice cellar inside. And it was very big. In the middle of the ice cellar, there was an ice sculpture. The ice sculpture was crystal clear. They could clearly see that there was a black-haired old man trapped inside. How could it be him? When the woman saw the black-haired old man, her eyes trembled. Her face was filled with disbelief. Mother knows him? Chapter 1273. The woman did not reply. She walked into the ice cellar and stood in front of the ice sculpture. She looked at the face of the old man in black and did not speak for a long time. Qin Feiyang and the other two exchanged glances with the Spirit Serpent Emperor and entered the ice cellar as well. They stood beside the woman and sized up the old man in black. The old man was about 1.85 meters tall. His eyes were closed and his old face was full of wrinkles. He sat cross-legged in the ice. His hair was mottled with white and he was extremely skinny. He was like a bag of bones. Clearly, it was caused by the exhaustion of his lifespan. However, although he was nearing the end of his lifespan, he gave off a sharp aura like a divine weapon. Suddenly, the Spirit Serpent Emperor looked at the old man's glabella and said in surprise, "Look, there's a brand on his glabella." Brand. Qin Feiyang and the inner demons were stunned. They looked over and a hint of surprise appeared in their eyes. There was indeed a brand on the old man's glabella. However, it was hidden by the ice and was not very obvious. That brand was a word. Prisoner. The inner demons asked suspiciously, "Why is it a prisoner word?" The woman said, "Because he's a prisoner." A prisoner? Qin Feiyang and the Spirit Serpent Emperor exchanged glances. A fake god was a prisoner? Was this a joke? I'm not joking. He's a prisoner. Moreover, the word prisoner was personally branded on his glabella by the late emperor. The woman said, "What? Mother, do you mean that this person was from the same era as the late emperor?" Qin Feiyang was shocked. The woman said, "He was indeed born in the era of the late emperor. However, when the late emperor established the Great Qin Empire, he was only a teenager." "Then who is he?" Qin Feiyang asked. The woman was silent for a while. She turned to Qin Feiyang and said, "You should know a thing or two about the late emperor's great achievements, right?" Qin Feiyang nodded. Back then, under his command, other than the Mermaid Emperor and the other gods of war, there are also countless brave and skilled generals. They were all unrivaled characters that ruled over a region. They were arrogant and unruly, but they were loyal and devoted to the previous emperor. Later on, many people died in battle with the Heavenly Sun Empire. In order to make it up to them, and also in order to express the gratitude and apology in his heart, the late emperor rewarded the descendants of the 100 generals with the title of Marquis. For generations to come, it will never change. The woman said, "I know about this as well." Qin Feiyang nodded. One of the marquises is the first-generation Zhuge Wu Marquis. When the country was first established, the world was not yet stable. At that time, the previous emperor personally controlled the court. And this first-generation Zhuge Wu, at that time, had 3 sons. Among them, the eldest and the second were arrogant and domineering by nature. They relied on the merits of their ancestors to frequently commit crimes. At first, the previous emperor did not care about them because of old friendship. He only warned the first-generation Zhuge Wu to let his 2 sons stop. The first-generation Zhuge Wu, knowing the methods of the previous emperor, naturally punished his 2 sons at the first opportunity. But his 2 sons were naughty and mischievous. Although they restrained themselves on the surface, they were even more rampant in the dark. They bullied men and women, used power for personal gain, and disregarded human life. Could be said that they did all kinds of evil. Finally, one day, the 2 of them were brought to the throne room. The previous emperor was furious. At that time, he was prepared to kill the 2 of them. However, under the bitter pleading of the first-generation Zhuge Wu, the previous emperor spared their lives in the end. The woman said. The inner demon said angrily, "For such scum, even if they were cut into pieces, it would not be too much. The ancestors actually spared them. Too merciful." Yes. But the previous emperor was such a kind and benevolent person. However, the previous emperor did not spare them easily. First, he used the elixir of calamity to cripple their cultivation. Then, he used a red-hot iron to brand the word prisoner on their foreheads and banished them from the imperial capital, never to return. From then on, the 2 of them disappeared, as if they had evaporated from the world, never to appear again. The woman said, "Elixir of calamity?" Banished from the imperial capital. Qin Feiyong frowned and looked at his mother. Why are their experiences exactly the same as mine? The woman looked at him, then turned to the black-clothed old man and said, and this person is the eldest son of the first-generation Zhuge Wuhou, Zhuge Shenfeng. Zhuge Shenfeng? Qin Feiyong looked at the black-clothed old man and said suspiciously, I have also read the historical records in the imperial palace. Why is there no record of this person? The woman said, of course, it was the plea of the first-generation Zhuge Wuhou to not record it in the historical records. After all, this kind of scandal, no one wants to spread to the later generations. Qin Feiyong said, then how did mother know? It was your grandfather who told me. Your grandfather's ancestor and the late emperor were sworn brothers, so our Lu family is very clear about these secrets. The woman smiled. Qin Feiyong and the inner demons looked at each other. Grandfather's master and the ancestor were actually sworn brothers? This relationship was too deep. No wonder Lu Zhang used to put on a self-righteous attitude in front of them all day long. It turned out that he had such a backing. That's not right, mother. The word prisoner in between his eyebrows was branded with a branding iron. This kind of scar can be healed with any healing elixir or regeneration elixir. So why is it still there? Qin Feiyong was puzzled. That is not a simple scar. When the word prisoner was branded, the late emperor used some means, so no matter what he did, he could not remove the word. The woman smiled faintly. Qin Feiyong asked, even if I cut off the skin? Yes. Cut off the skin, and when it grows again, the word prisoner will automatically appear again. The woman said. Our ancestors' means are really inspiring. Qin Feiyong exclaimed. Yes. If they can't remove the word prisoner in their lifetime, it means that they can't wash off this stain for the rest of their lives. This is more painful than killing them. The woman sighed. Then how can we remove it? Qin Feiyong asked. Surpass the late emperor. But how many people in the world can surpass the late emperor? None at all. The woman said. Why not? We can. We will definitely surpass him in the future. Am I right, this venerable one? The inner demons were not convinced. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. The ancestor was the person he admired and respected the most, but he was also his goal. The woman was stunned. Looking at the two people who were full of fighting spirit, she couldn't help but shake her head and smile. It's good to have dreams and pursuits, but don't bite off more than you can chew. I understand. The two nodded. The inner demon said, just now you said that the first Zhuge Wuhou had 3 sons. The first and second were expelled from the imperial capital. What about the third? The third is different from the first and second. The third is friendly and polite. It's also thanks to this third that the bloodline power of the Zhuge family can be passed down. The woman said. Qin Feiyong frowned and said, Mother, you mean Zhuge Mingyang is the descendant of this third? Yes. The woman nodded. I understand. Qin Feiyong sneered. Understand what? The woman looked at him in confusion. These days, I have been thinking about the real identity of the imperial teacher, but I still have no clue. And now, knowing these secrets, I can finally confirm that this person is the second son of the first Zhuge Wuhou. The truth has finally surfaced. Qin Feiyong sneered. The woman was shocked and asked, Tian'er, how can you be so sure? First, the Valley Master told me personally that Zhuge Mingyang is the descendant of the imperial teacher. Second, this is the nest of the imperial teacher. If they are not blood brothers, would Zhuge Shenfeng be at ease and seal himself here? Qin Feiyong sneered. Zhuge Mingyang is the descendant of the imperial teacher. The woman's eyes trembled and asked, Are you sure the Valley Master didn't lie to you? I'm sure. Qin Feiyong nodded. The woman said, Then what else does he know? Although he is the confidant of the imperial teacher, the imperial teacher is very vigilant. He doesn't know much. However, I can confirm that Zhuge Mingyang is the descendant of the imperial teacher. Because when Zhuge Mingyang was breaking through to the Combat King realm, the imperial teacher was personally protecting him. Mother, think about it. If Zhuge Mingyang is not the descendant of the imperial teacher, then with the imperial teacher's usual high and mighty attitude, why would he protect a mere Zhuge Mingyang? Qin Feiyong said. No wonder the imperial teacher would teach him the Azure Dragon's secret art. So it's because of this relationship. The woman suddenly realized. This person and the Xueqi family had hidden it really well. The Azure Dragon's secret art was really given to him by the Imperial teacher. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. Wait. Suddenly. The woman suddenly stretched out her hand, thought carefully, and said, I remember that the commander of the Kirin army told me that Zhuge Mingyang won a potential pill and opened the third level of potential. But even if he opened the third level of potential, it's impossible for him to break through to the Combat King realm so quickly? He's taking the Blood Demon pill. Qin Feiyong said. Blood Demon pill. The woman's eyes flashed with killing intent as she asked, then it should be the Imperial teacher who let him take the Blood Demon pill. If it's not that old man, then who is it? Qin Feiyong snorted from his nose and said, however, Zhuge Mingyang should also be killed. The woman looked at Qin Feiyong and the inner demon solemnly, and said, anyone who refines the Blood Demon pill, no matter who it is, do not show mercy. Her words were filled with a bone-chilling coldness. Qin Feiyong and the inner demons looked at each other and nodded heavily. The Phantom Serpent Emperor asked, Mistress, if the Imperial teacher is really the second son of the first Zhuge Wuhou, then what is his real name? Zhuge Shenyun. The woman said. Zhuge Shenyun. I finally know this old man's real name. Qin Feiyong muttered. The woman looked at Zhuge Shenfeng in the ice sculpture and asked, Tian how do you plan to deal with him? The Imperial teacher doesn't care about the descendants here, but he definitely cares about his brother very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent 10 9-star combat emperors to guard here, and he wouldn't have hidden himself so well. Therefore, this person is a very good bargaining chip. Qin Feiyong smiled. Originally, the 10 9-star combat emperors were to guard his mother and the villagers, but now that he thought about it, they were actually protecting Zhuge Shenfeng. Chapter 1274. The woman thought for a moment, then nodded. That's a good idea. Everyone knew what kind of person the Imperial tutor was. Family was not important to him at all. He only had ambition, power and desire in his eyes. If Zhuge Shenfeng was not that strong, even if he knew that Zhuge Shenfeng had fallen into Qin Feiyong's hands, he would not have much of a reaction. But Zhuge Shenfeng was a fake god. He was an indispensable fighting force for the Imperial tutor. Therefore, he would not give up on Zhuge Shenfeng so easily. As long as he did not give up, he would be bound. At least in the future, the Imperial tutor would not dare to deal with Qin Feiyong so openly. Whoosh! At this moment, accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, Lei Bao landed beside them. He looked at Zhuge Shenfeng and said, Is he the fake god? Qin Feiyong nodded. I thought he was a young man. I didn't expect him to be an old bag of bones. But I don't mind. Lei Bao smiled, revealing his terrifying fangs, and pounced on the ice sculpture. How dare you! The inner demons roared, grabbed Lei Bao's tail, and threw him out. Lei Bao slammed into the wall of the secret passage, and he immediately saw stars. The old woman and the others rushed over. Seeing Lei Bao in such a sorry state, they could not help but laugh at his misfortune. Laugh again, and I'll kill you all. Lei Bao was furious. He shook his head hard, looked at the inner demons and shouted, He's not one of us. Why are you protecting him? He's still valuable. If you dare touch him, I'll castrate you. The inner demon said without turning his head. Lei Bao immediately tightened his legs to protect his family jewels. He snorted disdainfully. He's just an old man. What value does he have? How big is your heart? You don't even care about a fake god. The old woman shook her head helplessly and walked toward Qin Feiyong and the inner demons. Regardless of whether he was a friend or foe, a fake god was definitely valuable. Walking to the side of Qin Feiyong and Zhuge Shenfeng, the old woman glanced at Zhuge Shenfeng and bowed. Greetings, young masters and mistress. Qin Feiyong asked, What do you think? The old woman said, Everyone's identity has been verified. Apart from the burly man at the beginning, there are no problems with the others. Very good. Qin Feiyong nodded. He turned to the woman and said, Mother, no matter what, you have to come with me this time. The woman's body stiffened. After a long silence, she shook her head and said, Mother can't leave yet. Why? Both of them looked at her in confusion. The woman sighed, Because the Imperial tutor used the blood soul technique to control me. Damn bastard. The inner demons were furious. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but clench his fists. Yeah. We are still being controlled by the blood soul technique. If we don't kill the Imperial Preceptor, we won't be free at all. The crowd outside also became restless. Quiet! Qin Feiyong shouted. Young master, you have to help us. We don't want to be controlled by the Imperial Preceptor anymore. We don't want to work for him anymore. People exclaimed. I told you to be quiet. Didn't you hear me? The inner demons shouted. Bloody light surged in his eyes. Everyone immediately shut up. The place fell into a dead silence. Qin Feiyong glanced at everyone. He turned to the woman and said, Mother, if it's because of this, you don't have to worry at all. Because I have found a way to break the blood soul technique. Really? The woman looked at him in surprise. The people outside were also looking at Qin Feiyong in bewilderment. Really? Qin Feiyong nodded. That's great. We are saved. Everyone immediately cheered in their hearts. The woman looked at Qin Feiyong and the inner demons and said with a smile, It seems that you don't need Mother to worry about you anymore. Of course. With our current foundation and ability, we can definitely contend with the Imperial Palace. The inner demon said proudly. Contend with the Imperial Palace? The woman murmured as if she wanted to say something but didn't. Plop. Qin Feiyong knelt on the ground and said, Mother, I can't lose you again. Come with me. The inner demons looked at Qin Feiyong and also knelt in front of the woman with a pleading face. Mistress, young master has been looking forward to reuniting with you day and night. Please fulfill his wish. The old woman also knelt and pleaded. Yes. Although we haven't known young master for long, we can all see that he cares about you a lot. You can stay by his side. The others also knelt on the ground and pleaded for Qin Feiyong. Thank you, everyone. Qin Feiyong glanced at the group of people and was very touched. The woman glanced at them one by one and her face was full of gratification. With such a group of loyal and devoted people by Qin Feiyong's side, what was there to be worried about? In the end, the woman's gaze fell on Qin Feiyong and the inner demons and said with a smile, Let's go out first. So Mother has agreed? Qin Feiyong said. Let's go. The woman smiled and turned to walk outside. The crowd outside immediately stood up and made way for her. Qin Feiyong and the inner demons looked at each other with smiles on their faces. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and kept the ice sculpture into the castle. Then, he quickly chased after his mother. Deity, I have to remind you. You are now in a conscious state and can't stay outside for too long. The blood demon chased and transmitted his voice. Yes. Qin Feiyong patted his head. He actually forgot about this. Suddenly, he rolled his eyes and looked at the inner demons and said with a smile, Look, the matter here is almost solved. Shouldn't you go back to the inner world? You are burning the bridge after crossing the river. The inner demons immediately raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyong said with a smile, If it wasn't for Mother, you can stay outside for as long as you want. But now, I really want to talk to Mother. Can you help me? No. I also want to talk to Mother and cultivate our relationship. The inner demon said. Bastard, don't forget, this is my body. Qin Feiyong said angrily. It's also mine. The inner demon snorted coldly. Qin Feiyong said with a dark face. Do you have to be like this? Oh, why don't you understand? Yes. All these years, you and Mother are far away from each other. It's difficult to see each other. But when you were young, you often spent time with her. Look at me. This is the first time I see Mother and the first time I feel motherly love. Can't you let me stay a little longer? The inner demons frowned and said with a hint of pleading in his tone. Hearing the inner demon's words, Qin Feiyong was silent. Then he sighed and said with a smile, Well, you can stay a little longer. I will go to the inner world to cultivate and then come out. Thank you. The inner demons said. You are welcome. Qin Feiyong smiled and looked up at his mother who was walking in front and said, Mother, I will come out to accompany you later. The woman stopped and turned to look at Qin Feiyong and the inner demons. She nodded and said with a smile, Okay. Swish. Qin Feiyong's figure disappeared immediately. Lei Bao saw this and his pupils shrank. He moved to the side of the inner demons and asked, Boss Qin, what is going on? Why are there two of you? The inner demons was not in the mood to talk to him. He quickly ran to the woman. What is the meaning of this? Lei Bao grumbled and then looked at the spirit serpent emperor and said with a smile, Little snake, you have been with Boss Qin for so long. You must know. The spirit serpent emperor turned and stared at Lei Bao. What did you call me? Say it again. Lei Bao's body stiffened and he smiled flatteringly. Big brother serpent emperor, uncle serpent emperor. That's more like it. The spirit serpent emperor smiled proudly and asked, Have you heard of the inner demons? Inner demons? Lei Bao was stunned and said angrily, I have not seen the world before, but I know about the inner demons. But didn't they say that these things don't exist in this world? Who said so? Let me tell you. Boss gave birth to the inner demons, and the one controlling that body is the inner demons. The spirit serpent emperor said. What? Lei Bao's eyes widened. It was actually the inner demons. No wonder he felt that Qin Feiyong's temperament was completely different from when he first met him. The old woman and the others behind were also shocked. They did not expect that there was an inner demons hidden in the young master's body. They also did not expect that the young master could live peacefully with the inner demons. After Lei Bao came back to his senses, he asked, In other words, the one who disappeared just now was the real Qin Feiyong? Yes. The spirit serpent emperor nodded. This is unbelievable. He can actually share a body with the inner demons. Lei Bao muttered to himself. He was shocked and asked, How did Boss Qin do it? The spirit serpent emperor said, 2 words, subduing people with virtue. Subduing people with virtue, 2 words? Do you know how to count? Lei Bao rolled his eyes and lowered his head to ponder. Subduing people with virtue. After a while, he shook his head and smiled. This ferocious person really could not be looked at with normal eyes. After a while, the inner demons and the woman flew out of the secret passage and stood on top of the island, looking down. Lei Bao, the spirit serpent emperor, the old woman, and the 1,000 over-combat emperors also flew out and stood behind the inner demons and the woman. Young master, help us remove the blood soul technique. A black-robed man said impatiently. Once the blood soul technique is removed, the Grand Master will find out. So, I have to trouble you to wait. Now, go and look around the island. See if there is anything suspicious. The inner demons said. Yes. Everyone bowed and responded. Then, they turned into streams of light and flew in all directions. The woman looked at the inner demons and asked with a smile, Tian-er, what are you looking for? Hearing this, the inner demons felt very warm in his heart. Because this meant that his mother really treated him as her own son. The inner demon said with a smile, I both suspect that there might be a land of inheritance hidden here. Land of inheritance? The woman was surprised. Yes. When we fought with the Grand Master's descendants, they all used the same kind of divine arts. There is only one explanation for this situation, and that is the land of inheritance. The inner demon said. That makes sense. The woman nodded. The inner demon said, Also there must be a herb field here. I just don't know if it is on this island or another one. The woman smiled and said, Now that you have so many people under your command, you do need a lot of herbs. The inner demon said, These things have nothing to do with me. I will take care of them. The woman asked curiously, Then what does it have to do with you? Killing people. I am only responsible for killing people. The inner demons laughed, and his eyes were filled with a strong bloody light. The woman's heart trembled. She grabbed the inner demon's hand and said, Although you are the inner demons, you must remember that you can't be too murderous. Otherwise, you will lose yourself sooner or later. Will I? The inner demons was stunned. Yes. The woman nodded with certainty. The inner demons took a deep breath and nodded. I will remember. The woman smiled and looked down at the old woman's group, saying, Tell me about them. Okay. The inner demons immediately told everything in detail. Time passed by. After listening to the inner demons, the woman sighed deeply and said, I didn't expect the Grand Master to do so many heartless things over the years. As the inner demons, I admit that I am cruel and merciless. But compared to him, what I have done is nothing. The inner demons snorted. The woman said, This time, you killed 1 million of his descendants. Is that nothing? They deserve to die. The inner demons said. Mother didn't say they shouldn't be killed. To be honest, I didn't expect the two brothers to not only return to the capital, but also reproduce here. 1,000,000 descendants is not a small number. If you hadn't discovered it in time, the Grand Master would have rebelled. The consequences would have been unimaginable. The woman sighed. The inner demons asked, "Mother, do you mean that I didn't do anything wrong?" The woman smiled and said, "The Great Qin Empire was built by the late emperor. You protected the Great Qin Empire and its billions of people. What's wrong with that?" The inner demons sighed in relief. The woman said, "Actually, you don't have to worry. No matter what you do, as long as it benefits the Great Qin Empire, I will not object." "Thank you, Mother." The inner demons was touched. "Silly boy, the ones who should be thanking you are your father and mother. You're still so young, but I let you bear such a heavy burden. Mother is ashamed." The woman sighed. "Don't mention him. My original body and I did this purely for mother and ancestors. It has nothing to do with him." The inner demon snorted, a cold light flashing in his eyes. This him was naturally referring to the current emperor. The woman glanced at the inner demons and sighed inwardly. She smiled and said, "Let's not talk about what's troubling you. Let's talk about your next plan." The next plan. The inner demons pondered for a while and shook his head with a smile. "Let me worry about this. I'm only responsible for killing people anyway. One is responsible for planning, and the other is responsible for killing people. The two of you really have a clear division of labor." The woman couldn't help but shake her head and laugh. The inner demons laughed. "However, Mother is very pleased to see you two so harmonious." "That's right. The people in that village are loyal to you. Don't let them down," the woman said. The inner demons smiled and said, "Mother, don't worry. We will treat them well." The woman nodded. Whoosh. At this time, the old woman streaked across the sky and landed in front of the inner demons. She cupped her hands and said, "Greetings, young master. How is it?" The inner demons asked. The old woman shook her head. The inner demons frowned and said, "Then let's wait for everyone." In a short while, the others returned one after another, but the answer they gave was the same as the old woman. They did not find anything. Lei Bao said, "The land of inheritance and the herb field must exist. If they are not here, then they must be on another island." The inner demons nodded and glanced at everyone. He opened the portal and said, "Let's go and meet up with everyone." Whoosh. Immediately. Chapter 1275. The reincarnation ocean was vast and boundless. Not only was it full of mystery, but it was also full of danger. Somewhere, a huge island stood on the surface of the ocean. On the island, the mountains and rivers had collapsed, the earth was shattered, the void was filled with blood mist, and the ground was full of corpses. Here, it had become a Jura hell, and the smell of blood was pungent. At this moment, in the sky above the island, a group of people and beasts were gathered. Their bodies were dripping with blood, and their killing intent was overwhelming. Swoosh. Suddenly, a blood-haired youth appeared. It was the inner demons. "Greetings, young lord." Seeing the appearance of the inner demon, whether it was the people or the ferocious beasts, they all bowed. The inner demons scanned them one by one. Regardless of whether it was the 9-star emperor beast or the people in the village, there were casualties. However, as long as they could kill all the descendants of the state preceptor, everything would be worth it. "Thank you for your hard work. I have already done what I promised you." The inner demon smiled. Before he finished speaking, the woman, Lei Bao, Spirit Serpent Emperor, the old lady, and the other 16 people, as well as more than 1,000 combat emperors, appeared one after another. Seeing that more than 1,000 people had appeared in front of them alive, everyone was wild with joy. "Have all the people here been killed?" the inner demons asked. An 8-star combat emperor stood out and looked at the inner demons. Other than a few fish that escaped the net, basically all of them have been killed. "Very good. Then, have you found any herb fields or other things on this island?" the inner demons asked. The 8-star combat emperor cupped his hands and said, "I was just about to report this to you, young lord." "Tell me quickly." The inner demons was overjoyed. The 8-star combat emperor said, "We found a herb field and a statue on the west side of the island." "Herb field, statue." The inner demon's eyes trembled and he said excitedly, "Bring me there quickly." "Without a doubt. That statue must be used for the legacy." "Yes." The 8-star combat emperor responded respectfully, then turned and flew toward the west side of the island. The inner demons hurriedly followed. The woman looked at everyone and smiled. "Let's go and take a look." Only then did everyone realize that there was an unfamiliar face. An old man asked suspiciously, "Lei Bao, may I ask who this is?" Lei Bao said, "She is Boss Qin's mother." "So it's mistress." Everyone felt a chill in their hearts, and they all knelt in the void and said respectfully, "Greetings, mistress." The woman stretched out her hand and said, "Everyone quickly get up." Everyone looked at each other. It seemed that this mistress was not as difficult to get along with as they had imagined. Actually, I should be the one thanking everyone. Tianer's life has been full of ups and downs ever since he was born. It was all of you who were by his side, silently helping him through the trials one after another. So, I thank you all. Please continue to help Tian. The woman bowed and said, "Mistress, you can't do this. If young lord hadn't saved us, we would still be pawns in the imperial preceptor's hands. A drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. Therefore, no matter what happens in the future, we will pledge our lives to follow young master." The old man said, "Yes, I'm willing to be your dog and horse. I'll never leave you." The crowd roared. The woman was very gratified. With such a group of loyal and devoted people following Qin Feiyong, what was there to worry about? On the west side of the island, there was a big canyon. Around the canyon, there were overlapping mountains, and it was magnificent. Swoosh! Accompanied by 2 air-rending sounds, the inner demons and the 8-star combat emperor landed in the sky above the canyon. The 8-star combat emperor said, "The herb field is here." The inner demons hurriedly lowered his head to take a look, and his face was instantly filled with ecstasy. The canyon covered an area of dozens of miles, and it could be said to be very big. In the canyon, there was not a single weed, and it was filled with herbs. A strong medicinal fragrance could be smelled from afar. Swoosh! He waved his hand, and Fatso and Lu Hong appeared. So many. Looking at the herbs that were swaying in the wind and overflowing with multicolored light, the two of them were dumbfounded. Most of them were very rare and precious herbs. They had not even seen some of the herbs before. The inner demon said, "I'll leave this herb field to you." "Okay." The two of them nodded. The inner demons turned his head to look at the 8-star combat emperor and asked, "Where's the statue?" The 8-star combat emperor pointed to a giant mountain on the right and said, "The statue is on the peak of that mountain." The inner demons raised his head and looked. The giant mountain was located not far from the right side of the canyon. It was like a giant sword that pierced through the clouds. "You stay and help." The inner demons instructed the 8-star combat emperor. Then, he turned into a stream of light and flew toward the peak of the mountain. The giant mountain was thousands of feet tall, and it towered into the sky. The peak of the mountain looked as if it had been flattened by a giant axe, and a statue that was more than 100 feet tall stood in the center of the peak. The statue was of an old man. He had his hands behind his back, and he raised his head to look at the sky. He was like an overlord of heaven and earth, and he was filled with a shocking and arrogant aura. Under the old man's feet was a giant python. Furthermore, this giant python had a total of 9 heads. Although it was also carved out of stone, the way it bared its fangs and brandished its claws made it seem like a real living creature. It gave people a feeling of fear and trepidation. Whoosh! The inner demons landed in front of the statue and looked at the face of the statue. His brows gradually furrowed. He had never seen this face before. Originally, he thought that this statue should be the imperial tutor or Zhuge Shenfeng. He did not expect it to be a person he had never seen before. Whoosh! At this moment, the woman flew through the air and landed beside the inner demons. She looked at the statue and said, "He is the first Zhuge Wuhou." "So it is him." The inner demons muttered. The woman said, "The 9-headed giant python under his feet was his mount when he was alive." Whoosh! Qin Feiyong appeared again. He looked at the statue and turned to look at the woman. "Mother, since his statue is here, does it mean that he was the one who secretly brought the imperial tutor and Zhuge Shenfeng back to the imperial capital?" "It must be so. Otherwise, The imperial tutor and Zhuge Shenfeng would not have been able to sneak back to the imperial capital without anyone knowing. I think the Zhuge family in the imperial capital must know about this. The woman said. The Zhuge family is really courting death. The inner demon smiled coldly and stepped forward. He cut his finger and a drop of purple gold dragon blood flowed into the statue's glabella. I know what you want to do. It's useless. The woman looked at the inner demons and said. Why is it useless? The inner demons frowned. This kind of inheritance must have the same bloodline power. In other words, you must have the bloodline power of the Zhuge family, and it must be the purest bloodline power to obtain his inheritance. The woman explained. Humph. All the land under the heavens belongs to the emperor. All the land under the heavens belongs to the emperor. A mere Wuhou dares to go against the emperor's authority? The inner demon snorted, and the emperor's qi lurking in her body roared out and pounced on the statue. The woman's heart trembled. She did not expect this child's qi of the emperor to have reached such a level after all these years. Even she could not help but want to worship him. Bas! The statue immediately emitted a black light as if it was about to come to life. The next moment, a dazzling divine light shot out from the glabella of the statue and pierced through the sky, directly into the glabella of the inner demons. The inner demons immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, closed his eyes, and carefully comprehended. It really worked? The woman was surprised. Qin Feiyong sneered and said, This is the difference between an emperor and a subject. A subject will never dare to go against the emperor's will. The woman looked at Qin Feiyong and her heart was filled with emotions. Thinking back to the past, this child in front of her was so innocent. And now, the child had grown up and matured. He already had the capital to control the overall situation of the world. She could completely rest assured. The woman smiled and said, Tian, I'm going to take a look at the herb field. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He turned and said, I'll go with you. The woman shook her head and smiled. It's not like I don't know the way. Why are you accompanying me? Besides, you're in a conscious state now. You can't go too far. All right then. When we get the inheritance, we'll immediately meet up with you. Qin Feiyong said. Indeed, as his mother said, he couldn't leave his body in a conscious state. If he denied it, his consciousness would dissipate. Okay. The woman nodded and turned to fly in the direction of the herb field. Whoosh! Qin Feiyong also returned to the inner world and comprehended the inheritance together with the inner demons. Time passed quietly. The next day, the inner demon suddenly opened his eyes. 2 dazzling divine lights burst out. Immediately after, he raised his hands and opened his palms. Flaming battle qi poured out from his palms. Boom! 2 divine powers emerged. The next moment, a fiery red sun and a waning moon appeared at the same time, suspended in the left and right palms respectively. Divine power surged and shocked all directions. Haha! Looking at the sun and the waning moon, the inner demons couldn't help but laugh to the sky, resounding through the clouds. Whoosh! The woman streaked across the sky like lightning and arrived at the top of the mountain. Looking at the sun and the waning moon in the inner demon's palms, her face was full of shock. The inner demons leaped up and landed beside the woman. He smiled and said, Mother, your child has obtained the inheritance, and it's a complete inheritance. I know. The woman nodded. Mother knows? This time, it was the inner demons who were surprised. Legend has it that the first Zhuge Wu Ho mastered a divine art called Eclipse Moon. This divine art has a total of 3 moves. The first move, Dark Moon. The second move, Eclipse Sun. The third move is Eclipse Moon. The woman smiled. The inner demons nodded and said, That's right, your child has obtained Eclipse Moon. Back then, the divine art that the patriarch and the great ancestor used was this first move, Dark Moon. However, with different battle qi, the color of the Dark Moon was also different. Although I know about Eclipse Moon, I didn't expect that the first Zhuge Wu Ho would actually leave behind a complete inheritance. I have to admit, your luck is really good. The woman chuckled. Of course. Uncle Yuan personally said that I'm a person with great luck. The inner demon said proudly. The woman rolled her eyes and scolded with a smile. I said that you're fat, and you're really arrogant. The inner demons chuckled. But suddenly. Chapter 1276. Not everyone can receive the complete succession. The chi of the emperor has played a huge role in your success. The woman smiled. Just as the inner demons had said yesterday, the land of the emperor was the land of the emperor, and the people who lived on the land were the emperor's subjects. As a subject, how could the first Zhuge Wuhou dare to go against the emperor's authority? The inner demon said, "What about Zhuge Mingyang?" The woman said, "Only he and the imperial advisor know if he has received the complete succession." Qin Feiyang appeared again and said, "I believe Zhuge Mingyang has received the complete succession. Otherwise, the imperial advisor wouldn't value him so much." That makes sense. The inner demons nodded and looked at the statue. "Should we get rid of it?" "Of course," Qin Feiyang said. Keeping the statue would only benefit the imperial advisor and the Zhuge family in the imperial city. Destroying the statue would be the same as destroying the Zhuge family succession. The inner demons chuckled and dispersed the sun and moon in his palm. He then raised his arm and threw a punch at the statue. However, following a loud explosion, the statue only trembled a few times. It was not damaged at all. "What's going on?" The inner demons frowned. Not only did he fail to destroy the statue, his arm was numb from the impact. The woman glanced at the statue and said, "Even with your cultivation of the 9-star battle monarch realm, you can't break it. I believe the statue has been refined with the force of a pseudo-god. Do you think I can't do anything about it?" The inner demons took out Chang Shui and rose into the air, swinging his arm vigorously. Clank! A crack appeared on the top of the statue. Even the hardest rock can't resist Chang Shui's attack. The inner demon let out a cold grin. He swung his arms and sliced the statue into pieces from head to toe following a series of clanking noises. Qin Feiyang looked at the woman and said, "Mother, can you tell me the origin of Chang Shui now?" The woman pondered for a while and shook her head with a smile. "It's not time yet." Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Then when can you tell me?" The woman smiled, then turned and left without saying a word. Looking at his mother's back, Qin Feiyang's face was full of helplessness. Done. After a while, the inner demons put away his dagger and glanced at the gravel on the ground. He smiled coldly and then turned to Qin Feiyang and asked, "Where's Mother?" Qin Feiyang said, "They should have gone to the medicinal field." "Let's go there too." The inner demons nodded. The two of them soared into the air and flew towards the canyon. Inside, the inner demons Fatty and Lu Hong led everyone as they busied themselves with work. "How's it going?" Qin Feiyang stood above the canyon and glanced at everyone. He then landed beside Lu Hong and asked with a smile, "This herb field is really amazing. I've never seen many of the herbs before. After moving all these herbs to the ancient pagoda, I'll check them one by one with the pill scripture," Lu Hong said. "How much longer will it take?" Qin Feiyang asked. Lu Hong looked at the busy people and said with a smile, "Soon." "Okay then, continue with your work." Qin Feiyang smiled and looked around. He found his mother standing on the top of the mountain on the right side of the canyon. She seemed to be thinking about something. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang and the inner demons looked at each other and flew to their mother's side. Qin Feiyang asked, "Mother, what are you thinking about?" The woman smiled and said, "I'm thinking about the future." The inner demons said, "What's there to think about? We'll take it one step at a time." The woman said, "Don't you want to be a chess player and compete with the other factions? Then you have to see the future to be sure of your chances." Qin Feiyang nodded. The woman turned to Qin Feiyang and asked, "Tian, what do you think the future will be like?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment before a bright light flashed in his eyes, and he said confidently, "I don't dare to make any assertions about anything else, but there's one thing I dare to say. In the future situation, I'll absolutely not be a chess piece." The woman smiled faintly and said, "Do you want to hear my thoughts?" "Mother, please tell me," Qin Feiyang said. The woman said, "The Great Qin Empire situation in the next 10 years won't change much from now." "Why?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The woman said, "Because some things are far more complicated than you think. Remember my words, before you break through to the war god realm, don't push the imperial teacher too hard." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "You'll understand in the future. However, with your current strength, you can enter the imperial city openly." The woman smiled. Qin Feiyang looked deeply at his mother and fell silent. The inner demon sent a voice transmission. Deity, does Mother mean that the Imperial Preceptor has a backer? Backer? Qin Feiyong was startled and said, if you say something else, I'll believe you, but a backer. I want to ask you, who in the world is qualified to be the Imperial Teacher's backer? I don't think so. The inner demon shook his head and said, but we can't rule out that there's someone stronger than the Imperial Teacher hiding in the great Qin Empire. Someone stronger, Qin Feiyong murmured and sighed. Maybe this world isn't as simple as we think. But there's nothing to think about. We'll deal with it when it comes. Wrong. If one comes, I'll kill one. If two come, I'll kill two. The inner demons laughed. Ah. Qin Feiyong was stunned and then smiled helplessly. Although this guy had changed, his murderous nature was stronger than before. Next, Qin Feiyong and Qin Yu avoided those heavy topics and chatted with their mother about their daily lives. Time passed by. About half an hour later, Lu Hong and Fatso brought everyone to the top of the mountain. Each of them held a Qiankuan bag in their hands. The Qiankuan bag was filled with medicinal herbs. And in order to plant them in the ancient pagoda, everyone uprooted these herbs. Qin Feiyong asked, is it done? Fatso and Lu Hong nodded. Qin Feiyong said, well, now I'll help everyone remove the blood soul technique. Those who are controlled by the blood soul technique stand together. Great. We'll be free soon. The thousands of people controlled by the blood soul technique were all overjoyed. They ran out of the crowd and stood on the other side of the void. The woman also walked over. Fatso said, boss, wait, Wang Yishan hasn't come back yet. That's right. Qin Feiyong patted his head and turned to look at the inner demons. Send a message to Wang Yongfeng immediately. The inner demons took out the image crystal. Bas. Not long after, Wang Yongfeng's shadow appeared. Wang Yishan, the seahorse, and the seal all stood beside him. Qin Feiyong asked, how's the chase going? Wang Yongfeng said, we found 50 to 60 people on the nearby islands and have killed them all. What about their cultivation? Qin Feiyong asked. Wang Yongfeng said, except for a 2-star battle saint and a dozen battle masters, the rest are all battle emperors. Forget it, don't chase them. We'll be back soon. Qin Feiyong said and gave Wang Yongfeng the coordinates of the medicinal field. Yes. Wang Yongfeng respectfully replied and turned off the image crystal. In less than 3 breaths, 2 men and 2 beasts descended above the mountain peak. Qin Feiyong looked at Wang Yishan and said, stand beside my mother, I'll help you remove the blood soul technique. Who is the mistress? Wang Yishan was surprised. Her. Qin Feiyong pointed to his mother. Greetings, mistress. Wang Yishan and Wang Yongfeng hurriedly bowed. You don't have to be so polite. Moreover, in terms of seniority and age, I should address the two of you as seniors. The woman cupped her hands and smiled. We don't dare, we don't dare. The two of them waved their hands in fear. Qin Feiyong looked at the two of them and said with a smile, we're all on the same side, so there's no need to be so polite. Quickly stand there. Yes. Wang Yishan glanced at the woman and quickly walked behind her. Qin Feiyong looked at the inner demons and said, let's begin. The inner demons nodded, placed his hands in front of his chest, and quickly formed a seal. Immediately, one slave seal after another appeared and flew towards everyone. But it did not directly rush into everyone's skull, but floated above everyone's head. The inner demons did this for a purpose. Once someone's blood soul technique was broken, the state preceptor would know immediately. Imagine what the state preceptor would do if he knew. He would definitely make a prompt decision and immediately abolish the bloodline power of others. Therefore, the inner demons must remove everyone's blood soul technique in an instant, so as to ensure that they would not lose a single soldier. Imperial Palace. The Imperial Garden. The chess game had also reached the most tense moment. The Emperor and Lu Zhang did not say a word from beginning to end, quietly watching the two play chess, but in their hearts, they were thinking about their own thoughts. At this moment, the second grandpa held a chess piece and glanced at the chessboard, but did not place it for a long time, as if he did not know how to make this move. You have been thinking about this move for a whole hour. Can you hurry up? The state preceptor frowned and looked very impatient. The second grandpa said lightly, playing chess is like doing things, one wrong move, and the whole game will be lost. I have to be very careful. The state preceptor raised his eyebrows and said, "The winner of this game is a foregone conclusion. No matter what you do, you can't beat me." "That's not necessarily true." The second grandpa smiled faintly. Judging from the chess game, the second grandpa's side was indeed a dead end, but there was no sense of frustration on his face. The state preceptor's eyes flashed and he said, "You should be stalling for time, right?" "Stalling for time?" The second grandpa was stunned and said suspiciously, "Why do you say that?" The state preceptor smiled and said lightly, "You and I are both sensible people, why pretend to be stupid? But it doesn't make any sense for you to do this, because the winner is already determined. If you win now, it may not be a win. If you lose now, it may not be a loss. The result is the most important." The second grandpa also smiled. The conversation between the two could be said to be a confrontation. But what they were aiming at was not the result of this game of chess. To be honest, they did not care about the result of this game of chess. What they were aiming at was Qin Feiyang and the others in the Sea of Reincarnation. The second grandpa had full confidence in Qin Feiyang. And the state preceptor was also full of confidence in his descendants. So this was the key to this game of chess. The result? The state preceptor smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, the result will come out soon, and it will definitely satisfy you." The second grandpa's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he laughed and said, "It's not enough to satisfy me, it must satisfy you." "It must be so." The state preceptor laughed. But before he finished speaking, puff,